Chapter 13-17. A normal professional player wouldn't be able to do it, but if it's that person, it's possible. Fans who often watched the league knew who that person was talking about. Among the junglers on the national server, other than Almighty Qin, there was only one person who could achieve such an effect. The FC King of Zone C, Spade Z. Although that person hadn't appeared for a long time. But the players still remembered the first time they saw that person. That was how she was, using a lower-level account to kill a higher-level opponent. Every round she would bring the team to victory. Even now it was still the same. What should we do? The CP fans are imagining things again. This isn't about the CP fans, right? This is obviously the girlfriend taking revenge for her boyfriend. I'm guessing someone is definitely trying to make Almighty Qin happy. Look up at the sky, this display of affection is really admirable. Wait a minute, look at that person's ID, little sweetheart Qin is mine. I seem to have found out about a huge secret. My boyfriend saw you acting coquettishly just now and he's beside me now. He's jealous and I have to think of a way to make him happy? So Almighty Qin is sitting beside someone? The above commenter is the truth. Aya, as a boyfriend he doesn't waste any words, he's going to catch him in the jungle. At this moment, Bojo saw the conversation on the public chat. Her fingers paused and she turned towards the Almighty seriously. Brother Mo, the whole world knows that I like you. Enrich. When he raised his hand he was still smiling. His hand landed on the youngster's furry head, feeling the warmth of his palm. He actually felt happy. Bojo took the chance to flirt. Look, I told you I wasn't lying to you, yet you're always on guard against me. In the past, you always wanted to marry me, when are you going to fulfill that promise? Don't keep dragging me, don't you know that chasing a girl can't be dragged out? Lin Feng and Coco were the closest to the two of them. When they heard the young man's casual words, their eyes widened like lanterns hanging outside. They looked at each other, their expressions and actions expressing the same meaning. F***ck, little Spade really did everything to get Captain's love. How could he say such shameless words? Lin Feng was the first to react. He turned to Bojo and cupped his fists. He was impressed. Bojo waved her hand calmly, smiling mischievously as a reply. It wasn't a big deal. I really can't compare. I can't compare. Lin Feng clutched his chest as if he had suffered a heavy blow. I finally know why I haven't been able to find a girlfriend for so many years. It's all because I'm too thin-skinned. I can't even compare to a girl. As he said this, someone responded to him. You still want to find a girlfriend? It was Yunhu. He looked at him, a hint of coldness in his ink-black eyes. Lin Feng felt his scalp go numb from being stared at. He coughed lightly and said casually, I'm just giving an example. Chapter 13-18. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Then he seemed to have recalled something, his fingers turning cold and flustered. He shifted his gaze. F***ck, don't joke around. Yunhu's eyes dimmed. He didn't say anything but his expression didn't change. Chinamo tapped the youngster's cheek. What do you think will happen if you drag this on? Like me being sad or something, Bojo replied. Chinamo arched a brow. I made you sad? Bojo took a moment, feeling troubled. She hadn't. But before she could reply, the Almighty added. Even if you're sad, I can comfort you. Mimich? Bojo heard it. Even though it was faint and slightly arrogant, she wanted to hear it again. The Almighty was comforting her? Chinamo watched his clear eyes. Just as he was about to speak, a cold sneer came from the live stream. I was wondering who it was. So it's that androgynous person who disguised himself as a man in order to attract fans. Now he's here to cause trouble for me. What's the point? No one wants to see you in the competition. Supreme Alliance 2, they have so many Almighties, but instead they have a troublemaker by their side. The caused Chinmo's gaze to turn cold. Lin Feng was the first to react. F***ck, this person is asking for a beating. This time Bojo remained silent. Chin-mo tilted, his right hand reaching over to snatch the keyboard in front of her. Brother Mo? Bojo tilted her head. That person's slender and good-looking fingers typed a string of words on the screen. Now let this boyfriend of mine fight you. You shouldn't be afraid. After all, you just killed me last time. That sentence caused a commotion in the livestream room. Boyfriend of this account. Boyfriend of this account. Almighty Qin. Ah, my Almighty Qin. What's going on? Almighty Qin is going up? Even though I'm happy that Almighty Qin is going up, he isn't in a good state. The previous round? Quan glanced at the bullet screen before glancing down at the bottom of the screen. his lips curved into a mocking smile. Against the FC King he might be caught and beaten up. But against Qin Mo, who wasn't in the same state as before, he was very confident. Almighty Qin is here? It seems like the rumors are true. Almighty Qin is willing to sacrifice Supreme Alliance's reputation for Spade Z. Since the Almighty is so passionate, I have no choice but to accept your challenge. Let's not fight for mana anymore. Let's fight in the middle lane. What do you think? Soon the other side replied with one word. Clean and efficient. All right. Coco looked at the word good, and couldn't help but worry. Lin Feng felt the same way. These fans might not know. The captain wasn't in a bad state. Instead he had lost all memories of the game. If you look at him from the perspective of a rookie, he had only played the game for 2 days. 2 days, was it really possible? A 1v1 like this. Coco wanted to move but Rao Rong, who was standing beside him, pressed him down and said in a low voice, look again. For the last time. If he was serious, what would he be like? Chapter 13-19. On the screen, Qin Mo's character had already skimmed out of the spring. Quan was on the opposite side. In order not to disturb the Almighty, Bo Jiu wanted to stand up. She didn't expect that the man would empty a hand and hold her down. His voice was very calm. Watch. Mamage? Watch him take revenge for her? Bo Jiu stilled. She supported her chin with one hand, lifting her thin lips lazily. After the words, this number's boyfriend, warmth filled her heart. The fans watching the live stream noticed Quan's foul once again. He had said he wouldn't use the blue buff but he didn't head straight for the middle lane. Instead, he used a blue buff in his own jungle before turning and charging towards Qin Mo. Everyone saw the figure. It was coming from the blue buff side, and it even had an ultimate move. They watched as the damage was about to land on the Almighty. Unexpectedly, at this moment the figure was faster than him. With a movement technique, he retreated to the bottom of the tower with his long sword. Missed. It was obvious that Quan had missed his big move. He couldn't accept it, mocking the beasts by the grass. Almighty Qin? Why did you retreat to the bottom of the tower? How are you going to fight if you don't come out? Don't tell me he's scared? The moment he finished his sentence, a silver light flashed across the screen. Everyone watched as a silver light flashed across the screen. In the blink of an eye, it had landed on Hound's body. The electric circle had taken away a quarter of Hound's health. Ha! You want to kill me in your current state? After Quan was slowed down, he flipped his hand and gave Qin Mo another big move, his tone smug. You fell for it, old man. This time the damage was very high. Almost all the sword lights hit Qin Mo's body. Lin Feng clenched his fists, wishing he could join the fight himself. Coco pinched the fluffy bunny in his arms. The fans watching the match did not dare to look at this scene. After all, it wasn't possible for the Almighty to do such a thing. When had he ever been suppressed by someone? Everyone still remembered that even if his hand was injured, as long as he picked up the assassin, he would be able to fight 1 against 3 in the later stages. But now, he had made an obvious mistake in such a simple judgment. That's it. End your esports career. It's time to give the opportunity to us newbies who haven't been able to stand out. Quan laughed sinisterly as he raised his sword and was about to chase after the white figure in front of him and kill him. Everyone thought that Almighty Qin was dead for sure. But at this moment, the people who were watching from the dog's point of view only felt that the person in front of them had disappeared in an instant. Just like Quan, they were all stunned. In the next second he remembered that it was a teleportation skill. Almighty Qin was behind him. Quan's movements were quick. You want to lie to me? Dream on. The moment he turned, he wanted to give Qin Mo a fatal blow. Let's see what you can do this time. But just as his long sword was about to fall, the figure in front of him was 1 step ahead of him, moving towards the bushes. Then with a backhand he raised his sword and enlarged it. Swoosh 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 swoosh. The silver-white sword light seemed to be singing an idyllic song as it revolved around him. Quan's eyes narrowed. His fingers involuntarily pinched the mouse in his right hand. When did he use such a powerful skill? When he had returned to the tower to clear the troops. Which meant that Qin Mo hadn't returned to the tower to hide, but to wait for the skill. Attack. Chapter 13-20. They were clearly separated by a screen. However, the moment the silver light rose, Quan actually felt his entire right hand aching. He thought of retreating or perhaps moving forward. It was that 1 second of hesitation. The game's music started playing. K.O. Quan watched as his character fell to the ground, covered in blood. In the end, he didn't even have the chance to turn the situation around. Beside the bushes, that person held a sword in his right hand. He stood tall and straight, his white robes fluttering in the wind. His side profile was handsome, and the silver light on the screen seemed to be reduced to his background. Not to mention the comments that flooded the public chat. Counterattack with low HP. This was a true counterattack at critical health. Holy sh*t. So cool. Almighty Qin isn't fighting, he's showing off his skills. He's showing off to the point that his opponent has nothing left to live for. Shh. Quiet. Almighty Qin doesn't want to fight a certain streamer head-on. Tell me, how should we fight? If he fights, he'll definitely return to the spring. As a professional player, I can't let ordinary players feel that this game is too bad, or else my popularity will drop. Be serious. I'm going to have a nosebleed from watching this. Is this even possible? Countless screams and screams quickly swept across the public chat. There was only one message that was displayed at the bottom right corner. That was Qin Mo's message. I'll kill you every time you come out. If you can't, it's my loss as your boyfriend. That was all. He was practically announcing it to everyone. I'm punching you not because you provoked me but because you provoked my girlfriend. If the hound hadn't come out before. He had no face at all now. Counterattack with low HP. This was as good as telling him just how big of a gap there was between the two of them, even though they were playing the same game. 4 times. He had already died 4 times. That number was like a slap to his face. But this time he wasn't playing quietly. He was doing a live broadcast, so he couldn't surrender. But if they didn't surrender and let him out, he would only die more. In the end, the figure blocked the spring just to kill him. Quan was clear that after losing so much face, there was a high chance that no one would watch his live stream again. The popularity he gained from winning against Qin Mo. Everything was gone. He couldn't accept this. This was too unreconciled. He even felt wronged. He was also afraid of being recognized. When the crystal finally broke, he immediately logged out of the game. He didn't even complete the host requirement of broadcasting for 2 hours a day. After he stood up, he threw a huge tantrum. Just when he thought that was it. A stranger in QQ said to him, "Are you willing to lose just like that?" Of course not. The hound did not want to go back at first. But when he saw the next sentence, his thoughts changed. "I can help you. I know everything about Qin Mo, and you're right. He isn't as strong as before, but it's not because of his hand injury. If you're interested, reply me and we can have a good chat." It was as if the gods and ghosts were at work. Although he did not know who the other party was. Quan sat back down and hesitated for a moment before typing, "What do you want to talk about?" Chapter 13:21. The man's words pierced through Quan's last shred of shame. This made him pound the keyboard loudly. "What is your purpose? Are you here to help me or to mock me?" The stranger typed again, "Young man, don't be anxious. I'm saying this to tell you that you can't react like this. The people on the internet just need to pretend to be wronged. No matter what you've done, they'll forgive you. Besides, you only took a few things from someone else. What's the big deal? If you pretend to be pitiful during the broadcast and apologize, some people will naturally forgive you. Some people might even think that the pro players are suppressing you. After all, in my eyes, those methods just now were too flashy. Think about it carefully. Isn't what I said right?" At this point, Quan found a balance in his heart. Isn't he suppressing the newbie? That person is afraid of others surpassing him. What almighty? He's probably crippled now. Wait a minute, you said that the problem with his strength wasn't because of his injuries but something else? What's the reason? If I'm not wrong, he has amnesia. He has forgotten everything, including the attributes of his character. Do you think the committee would be willing to let such a player represent China in the Asian Cup? Even if he used to be the most valuable almighty in the market, this competition isn't about business, it's about who is the safest. Amnesia? Qin Mo had amnesia. Quan's first reaction was disbelief. He continued to read the message, reading it over and over again. In the end, his eyes dimmed and he stared at it for a long time. On the other end of the computer was the person. She didn't even dare to reveal her face, afraid that the system would recognize her. She had rented a house and hadn't stepped out since she came to Jiang City. She knew that the moment she revealed herself, she would be in danger of being caught. She didn't know why the special forces were chasing after her relentlessly. If not, she wouldn't have to hide in a corner. But soon she wouldn't have to live in such a sullen state. She had always known that the information she had could bring that person to her side. She had even triggered him mentally. Why would he waste his time on gaming? Right now he should be on their side. She didn't have to think to know that the moment he saw them. Murderous intent surged in his heart. He was such an outstanding person. He should rebuild their organization with her. If he had been the hypnotist, Fan Jia believed that no matter how skilled he was, he wouldn't have been able to solve his crimes. Soon she would get that man back. Firstly, he must not participate in the Asian Cup. As for his team members, they could no longer come into contact with him. If this news was released, it would definitely cause some disintegration no matter which side it was. Fan Jia had seen the Qin Group's PR, it was indeed good. But how could they do PR for such a thing? She had wanted to send this message the moment she arrived in Jiang City. But Fan Jia knew that someone had to follow up on this. She couldn't just expose herself like this. Now there was such a person. Chapter 1322. No one in the engine room knew what they were about to face. It was the most basic kind of courage. Seeing Qin Immerse smash into pieces, his heart was filled with joy. Bojo was happy too. After all, the Almighty had admitted to the entire server that he was her boyfriend. He had even admitted it 3 times. Rao Rong stood there deep in thought. How did you get your maneuvers? Wasn't it just a casual game? Qin Immerse asked casually, his brows arched. Casual game? Rao Rong paused, breaking into a smile. You are really... Sometimes he had to acknowledge the existence of a genius. Then why didn't you make any predictions during the previous match? Qin Immerse glanced up, looking lazy. I haven't seen that character. It happened in an instant. Everyone in the engine room stilled, turning to ask, Captain didn't play the game after you came back? That wasn't possible. Wasn't there a video online about little Secretary Qin being my wife? He played the opening, I played the rest while he watched from the side. But I didn't have any controls in the 2 matches I played yesterday. That was why Captain hadn't predicted his opponent's skills. That was because he only knew a few characters in the game. In other words, as long as he familiarized himself with all the characters, he would be able to regain his previous abilities. Of course, there was also his familiarity with the keyboard and mouse. The latter wasn't the most important. Because in that match just now they had discovered something. Even though he had lost his memory, Captain's body still remembered, instinctively executing the most precise maneuvers. This wasn't related to intelligence. It had been 3 years. He had been training every single day for the past 3 years. While everyone said he was talented, they couldn't see the calluses between his slender fingers and the lack of rest in his neck. They were afraid of falling sick in their line of work. They didn't dare to get sick. Especially when it was time for the competition, they were afraid it would affect their condition. He smoked more fiercely than the average person. Perhaps it was because of these sacrifices that others couldn't see that he had walked out and become the carry that every boy liked, the strongest jungler in the entire game. With such a past. In that instant he didn't have to be afraid of anything. Now he just needed time. Lin Feng was the most excited. Let's start today. Let Captain use all the game characters once. As long as we have enough time for Captain to familiarize himself with these characters, we will be able to participate in the Asian Cup the day after tomorrow. 2 days. No, to be precise. It should be less than 2 days. 36 hours. Excluding the time for eating and sleeping, there were only 24 hours left. He had 24 hours to familiarize himself with all the characters in the game, and he clearly knew what methods to use to evade, the recovery time of the opponent's skills, the damage dealt, and the skills used. It was too difficult. It was too difficult. But if it was the Captain, there was still hope. At that moment, everyone turned around and looked at Qin Immerse. The light in their eyes was so bright that it was almost shocking. But soon she saw that handsome and indifferent side profile. Their hearts skipped a beat again. Would the Captain agree? Chapter 1323. Captain. Coco and Lin Feng spoke at the same time. But none of them were as direct as Rao Rong. Do you still want to come back and continue the competition? Qin Immerse glanced at him. There wasn't the slightest hint of joy or anger in his gaze, just a slight indifference. In the end, Rao Rong was defeated. What exactly did he mean? Qin Immerse stood up, one hand in his pocket as he shifted his gaze away, seemingly searching for something. In the end, his gaze landed on Lin Feng. When everyone saw Lin Feng being stared at like this, they quickly shifted their gazes. Lin Feng, who was the center of attention, felt his scalp go numb. The pressure from his captain's gaze was immense. That. He cleared his throat, about to speak when Qin Mo's voice came over. I don't remember anything now. If I don't drag you down, I can join your competition. But as a condition, I'm curious about one thing. Qin Mo's voice drifted over, sounding lazy and black-bellied. I don't remember anything now. What is it? Lin Feng was a little frightened. Why did the captain look at him when he was curious? It couldn't be that he saw him in a different light, right? That was this person. Before Lin Feng could think of anything else, Chinamo had already raised his left hand, tapping the top of Bojio's head. She has always been telling me that we are dating, that I was the one who chased her and that she was the one who insisted on marrying me. I really want to hear the real story. In an instant, Lin Feng had reached their captain's point. Speaking of which, Captain, I've tolerated Little Spade for a long time. Lin Feng rolled up his sleeves, his face full of indignation. Really, how could she say that you liked her so much that you wanted to marry her? Even though you really liked her, everyone knows that it was Little Spade who chased after you. The first time she saw you, she said that she wanted to provide for you. But to be honest, the Fu family's money isn't enough to provide for Captain. Besides, no one knew she was a girl at that time and she would confess to any handsome guy she saw. I don't know what kind of person she is. Bojio. She finally understood how it felt to have a useless teammate. Team Flower Lin, you don't have to say the last sentence, okay? Confessing to every handsome guy you see? As expected, Chinamo smiled. His beautiful peach blossom eyes slowly narrowed. Looks? Lin Feng nodded. They're very particular about looks. Is that so? Everyone present could hear the slight coldness in his voice. Even the uncle Yin Wuyao felt that after today, little Captain's path in love would not be easy. And then? Qin Mo's nonchalant voice rang out again. Bojio took the chance to pinch him. Lin Feng's expression instantly turned solemn, cursing in his heart. He appropriately kept away some of Little Spade's dark history and started to pick the nicer parts. Then she seemed to have changed into a different person, rejecting you in the game. The few of us discussed this topic in detail. It must have been her ploy back then, loosening the reins only to grasp them better. She wanted Captain to notice her. After all, in the game, no one would ever reject Captain. Chapter 1324. Immerse, it's a trap. Coco added. Captain, you might not know, but she was still typing on the internet. After flirting with us, she invited us to meet up. She knew exactly what you were thinking. It was all an act. Honestly, if a girl chased me like that, I would just give in. Chinamo was good at catching the main point. So, she was indeed the one who chased me. Of course. How could someone like their captain chase someone? Even if he was interested in Little Spade, he would lure her to chase him. But Captain Flower Lin said that you really like Little Spade. No, you like her very much. You might not know, but when we saw you interacting with someone on your official Weibo, we were all stunned. We tagged you so many times but you never replied. At this point, Coco's eyes turned bitter again. But at this moment, Chinamo wasn't concerned about it anymore. Instead, he was concerned about what Lin Feng had said. Lin Feng noticed that his captain was looking at him again, so he immediately asked, Captain, can we continue playing now? Wait. Chinamo tilted his head, reaching out to grab a certain someone who was about to sit down. He didn't look at her. Instead, he said to everyone present, we need some private time. After saying that, he took the man away. In the computer room, the Supreme Alliance members looked at each other, then their gazes landed on Lin Feng again. Lin Feng had received too much attention that day. The naive and innocent him didn't understand, so he scratched the back of his head. Why are you all looking at me like that? Nothing. He looked up at the sky. In the future, when they got a girlfriend, they had to control Flower Lin's mouth. She was such a troublemaker. Grandfather Butler watched from the side, his fingers supporting his forehead, shaking his head helplessly. His movements were elegant. As a qualified butler, how could he not entertain the guests when the owner wasn't around? Hence, just when everyone wanted to sneak a peek at what their captain wanted to discuss with Little Spade, Grandfather Butler brought a tray full of desserts to the computer room. Grandfather Butler dutifully brought the tray full of tea and desserts to the computer room. He smiled and blocked everyone's way. I think you need some dessert now. Yin Wuyao really wasn't interested in tea and desserts. Coco's eyes lit up when he saw the snacks. He stuffed a handful into his mouth and held Yin Wuyao's hand. Uncle, you have to try this. It's really good. Before Yin Wuyao could speak, Lin Feng, who was standing at the side, leaned over. Damn, this is too delicious. Uzi, come and eat. Yun Hu and Yin Wuyao. After a few refreshments, the two of them forgot that there was a better show to watch. Sure enough, the characteristics of pig-headed teammates were the same. After being bribed, they would still help the person pay. Grandpa Butler smiled like a gentleman. Sometimes protecting the young master's face was what a qualified butler had to do. However, this matter was a little strange to Grandpa Butler. After all, he never had to worry about the young master. Now, it seemed that someone was going to dig up old scores. Grandpa Butler raised his hand and glanced at the silver pocket watch. And it's time to prepare dinner again. I wonder what young master will say this time. Sigh, I've chased after many people. Chapter 1325. Bojio, who was brought to the room by the Almighty, knew it clearly. The Almighty was going to settle the score with her. Lin Huahua's stupid teammate had caused her so much trouble. Instead of being passive, she decided to strike first. That had always been Bojio's style. Hence, the moment she reached the room, she spoke with a sincere expression, "I can explain." Qin Imo glanced at her, his fingers twirling the poker cards. When he heard her words, he tossed the poker cards onto the coffee table and leaned back unhurriedly. Bojio smiled. "Look, I'm a girl, right? MMH?" Qin Imo arched a brow, his entire attitude telling her to start her performance. Bojio felt that his attitude wasn't respectful. She reached out and cupped his face before continuing, "Ever since I was young, Grandfather Butler taught me that as a lady, I have to be reserved." Qin Imo laughed when he heard that. "What are you laughing at?" Bojio arched a brow. Qin Imo moved her hand away, his voice slow. "You really are a failed example of education." Bojio smiled nonchalantly. "As a lady, I have to keep up appearances, right? It wasn't easy for you to forget my dark history. I'll definitely say that you chased me. There's nothing wrong with that, Brother Imo. You seem rather happy that I lost my memory." Qin Imo flicked her hand away. "Go over." Bojio. Seriously, he wasn't even allowing her to take advantage of him? "It seems like my sugar daddy doesn't know how to grasp the main point." Qin Imo chuckled, the corners of his lips lifting. "Let me rephrase my question. Is it your hobby to confess whenever you see a good-looking person?" Bojio immediately denied. "Of course not, it's a misunderstanding." "Is that so? Why don't we have a chat? How many times have you confessed to me?" Qin Mo's chuckle was especially dangerous. Bojio glanced up. "The first and the only one." Qin Imo watched her bright black and white eyes, they were so clear that only his face could be seen. He hadn't expected such an answer. After all, those words of ridicule just now didn't seem to be made up. Bojio pursed her lips. "Honestly, Brother Imo, you're so good-looking. Other than you, who else do I need to confess to?" This sentence was meant to coax him again. But at this moment, Qin Imo tilted his head, the smile at the corner of his mouth clearly visible. It could be seen that he really fell for it. Bojio didn't notice his smile and continued, "Have you forgotten how hard it was to woo you? When I first met you, you were like a doll. Because you were so beautiful, I couldn't bear to raise my voice at you. You don't know how fierce I was when I was young, but I was gentle to you. It's a pity that you didn't appreciate it and always complained that I was dirty. You would wash my hands for me before meals, after meals, and even before bed, as though I was a troublesome person. But as the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Even then, I still found you adorable. Otherwise, why would I treat you as a girl?" Of course, Bojio would never say that out loud. "At the time, I realized my feelings. I shyly hugged my piggy bank and went to you to confess to you." Bojio pursed her lips. "But it didn't end up as I wished." Qin Imo swept her a glance. "Shyness? Are you sure that's an appropriate adjective for you to use?" He couldn't imagine that such a tender scene could have been done by this person. "At that time, I was still very innocent. I really wanted to buy you, but unfortunately you were too expensive." Qin Imo arched a brow. "Is that so? My innocent sugar daddy fell in love with me at first sight when I was young? And Mitch, I was 3.5 then." Bojio took the chance to hold his hand. "Do you understand the feeling of being electrocuted?" Qin Imo allowed her to hold his hand without a change in expression. He lifted his lips in amusement. "I don't understand how a 3.5-year-old could experience the feeling of being electrocuted." She was really good at bullshitting, talking about being electrocuted. Bojio's face sank. "That's right, I didn't understand it back then, but now that I think about it, I liked you too much." With that, Qin Imo couldn't take it anymore. He pressed her onto the sofa, looking down at her from above. His handsome face tilted over, his breath landing on her ears. "Let's end the nonsense here. As for Sugar Daddy's private life, I only have one request. Since you chose me, you must always choose me, understand? If Sugar Daddy is too fickle, I'm not sure what I'll do." Bojio wanted to speak, but his kiss messed up her breathing. It wasn't just a kiss, his hand had already reached over. He had already lifted her shirt and was moving in from top to bottom. Bojio's entire body was burning. She couldn't shake off the numbness from his kiss. Her clothes and hair were messy and filled with an ambiguous sense of beauty. Her face was flushed red. The kiss by her ear gradually heated up, and even her legs felt a little weak. Because of his hands, her voice became a little choppy. "We still have to play games outside. I know how to play." He leaned forward and planted a kiss on the side of her neck. "But my sugar daddy, shouldn't you be more focused when I'm pleasing you, Image?" This wasn't pleasing her, it was obviously a sweet and scratching punishment. He almost rubbed her entire body, but he refused to let her. He was like a seductive demon as he whispered in her ear with a hoarse voice, "Are you going to confess to other people, Ben, I've never done it." The sound of clothes rubbing against each other made Bojio even more uncomfortable. She decided to take the initiative, wrapping her long legs around his waist. Then she smiled and kissed his Adam's apple. She was like a mermaid at the bottom of the sea, full of charm. "Speaking of which, Brother Imo, you're really good at enduring." Chin Mo's gaze deepened because of her actions. The person in his arms knew all too well how to crush his rationality. It wasn't wrong to say that a beauty could see through one's bones. The smooth jade-like skin in his hands. Moreover, when she spoke, the corners of her lips lifted and the bewitching dot at the end of her eyes seemed to have been purposely placed there to seduce Scholar. She seemed to be ready, waiting for someone to pluck her. Her clothes were messy, her collarbones exquisite, the curves of her breasts round and round. Her top was lifted, revealing a smooth, white skin. It was enough to ignite anyone's impulses. Moreover, such a scene was created by him. Including her emotions. Chin Imo pulled his hand back, breaking into a slow smile. "Do you want to stay in bed the entire day? Don't you want the game anymore? If that's the case, you can continue seducing me." Bojio changed her position, becoming a little gangster. "What a pity the time and place aren't suitable." "You don't have to feel pity, you can continue if you want." With that, Chin Imo leaned forward, the smile on his thin lips obvious. Bojio finally managed to get him to stop. She wasn't stupid enough to continue being punished. "It's okay, we have important matters to attend to. You have to know that I'm a considerate girlfriend." Chin Imo arched a brow, releasing her. Bojio reached out to straighten her top, pulling the Almighty to leave. The man didn't move. He tilted his head and glanced at her again, letting her drag him. He casually supported his chin with one hand and said in a hoarse voice, "Are you going to let me go like this?" What was wrong with that? At the start, Bojio didn't understand what he meant. But when she lowered her lids, her long legs touched the part that had obviously changed, her face heating up. But he was still the same, noble and abstinent, making her want to touch him. The Almighty was probably the only one who could be so seductive when he was aroused. After half a minute, that place didn't seem to be cooling down at all. Bojio maintained her previous position. "Do you need my help?" "How?" Chin Imo glanced over. Bojio said something in a low voice. Chin Imo laughed. "With my hands?" "Emimich," Bojio replied, her eyes beautiful. "What? You don't like it?" She was really daring. She was always so direct that people couldn't handle her. Chin Imo watched as she was about to move, her disguise about to be removed. He pressed her hand down. "You're just adding fuel to the fire, you're going crazy." This was the first time the Almighty said such words. She stilled and was pulled into the bathroom. He turned on the cold water. He made her stand outside the frosted glass. Even so, Bojio could feel his aura fluctuating. 5 minutes. Indeed, it was faster than her helping him. When he came out, he had already changed his clothes, one hand pressed against his head, his black hair still dripping with water. He was fresh from a shower. Just like that, they left the room and walked towards the computer room. Lin Feng was still eating. When he saw the two of them, he immediately asked, "Little Spade, what are you guys talking about? What took you so long? Why did Captain take a shower? We're almost done with the dessert Grandfather Butler prepared." Bojio picked up the remaining blueberry dessert gracefully and stuffed it into his mouth. She smiled. "Senior Lin, you shouldn't speak today." Lin Feng widened his eyes, confused. Why didn't she allow him to speak? Bojio tilted her head and asked the Almighty, "Brother Imo, why did you ask him when there were so many others?" If she had asked someone else, her dark history wouldn't have been dug up. "Of course, it's because Captain trusts me." Lin Feng was about to puff up his chest when his captain interrupted him leisurely. However, his actions were interrupted by his captain's unhurried words, because the characteristics of a pig-like teammate are more obvious. In an instant, Lin Feng froze. Had Captain really lost his memory? Why hadn't his venomous tongue gotten better? How scary. Even after losing his memory, Captain was still so cunning? Chapter 1326. Let's begin. Isn't there not much time? Chinamo sat down, one hand supporting his chin as he nodded towards the seat beside him. Then he swept Bojo a glance, his intentions clear. He wanted her to sit beside him. Bojo knew, but she arched a brow. You want me to sit? What? Do you really want to sit on my lap? Chinamo asked as he switched on the computer, tilting his head in amusement. She wasn't as good as the Almighty in terms of language. Hence she opened a room and chose the 1v1 mode. It was a 1v1 against the Almighty. Every time they started, she would switch to another character to fight against the Almighty. As they fought, she would introduce the moves of the character. Lin Feng was in a daze. Rao Rong watched as well, flicking the cigarette ash in his hand. No one had expected Little Spade to use such a method to get their captain to memorize the character's attributes. But it had to be said. This was the best method. It didn't just deepen the impression. More importantly, Little Spade's hand speed and awareness were rare in the esports world. With such a person as a sparring partner. This meant that as long as their captain was familiar with the moves of the character, it wouldn't be easy for an average person to defeat him. Perhaps there really was hope. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw Chinamo tilting his head and moving his mouse. The other members of the team didn't slack off either. They logged into the game and started their daily hand speed training. Even Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang, the two reserve members, didn't slack off. The air in the computer room definitely wasn't good. Boys like to smoke while playing games, but today they were restraining themselves. They even went to the toilet less than usual. After every round, they would reach out and press the back of their necks, then lean back and wait for the next round with a cigarette in their mouth. It was just a short break and it was the time to prepare before they entered the game. It was probably because they wanted to win too much. Every esports player had a dream in their heart. They wanted to wear the national flag and stand in the center. Hence, even the sacrifice felt sweet. Because they were clear. They were never the same person. And there was their teammate beside them. Time passed little by little. The old butler, who had pushed open the door to call the guests down for dinner, paused when he saw this scene. He had never seen a room with such bad air quality in the castle or anywhere else. However, he was surprised that he felt happy. Ever since he was young, although the young master was very likable, he didn't have many friends. Having a group of people visit his home was something that had never happened before. Speaking of which, this was the first time he helped the young master entertain guests. Perhaps there was nothing wrong with a change of environment. If it wasn't a coincidence. Young master would probably never know these people. But now he saw that because of these people, the young master's aura had finally increased. That feeling was hard to describe. When he first came into contact with the young master was still young and had no mother since birth. All her topics revolved around the pet. Later, when the owner passed away, the young master became quiet. He even talked less and less about the pet, to the point that he almost forgot about the existence of such a person. In the Fifth Avenue, the young master was wanton and mysterious. No one could catch her. Her whereabouts were uncertain and she came and went alone. She could always be seen smiling in a black motorcycle suit in the noisy nightclub. This kind of life was indeed carefree. But no one knew. When he returned to the castle, the young master hugged the small keyboard and sat on the floor of the heater drinking wine. Elegant and lonely. She liked to play an old movie, Interview with the Vampire at night. When she saw him coming, she would smile and say, "That morning before I became a vampire, I saw the sunrise for the last time. I remember all the details, but I have forgotten all the sunrises before that. I enjoyed this spectacular view for the last time, as if it was the first time I saw it. Then I said goodbye to the sunlight and became what I am now." Grandpa Butler, me too. I said goodbye to the sunlight and became what I am now. At that time, the old butler swore to stay by this child's side for the rest of his life. It was all right now. Not only him, but more people were by her side. That was the most important thing. The corners of Grandpa Butler's lips curved slightly. He didn't disturb the group of professional gamers. She packed the dishes on the dining table in exquisite boxes and placed them in each person's hand. As a qualified butler, how could he not be able to do such a small thing? However, these children were really putting their lives on the line. When they saw the boxes, they thanked him and started to eat while entering the game. They had to play 2 rounds of games to finish a meal. It was really tough. The clock on the wall turned another 3 squares. When Yun, who stood up and wanted to raise his hand to smoke a cigarette, The person sitting beside him tilted his body and rested his head on his left arm. It was Lin Feng. He was probably too tired from the 2 days of training and fell asleep while sitting. Yunhu paused, holding the cigarette in his hand. He didn't light it up, using only one hand to familiarize himself with the sensitivity of the mouse. The night outside was getting darker and darker. But in this small computer room, gentleness could be seen everywhere. Shui Yaoyao fell asleep on the keyboard, Coco's down jacket draped over her body. He had intentionally lowered the brightness of the screen. Bojio was still explaining the skills of the character, but her voice was clearly much softer. In such a dark night, it was like flowing sand making one feel extra warm. But even so, Chinemo could hear the tiredness in her voice. He tilted his head and said, "All right, you don't have to say any more. Remember to speak quickly." Bojio took a sip of water to moisten her throat. Chinemo freed a hand and lifted her chin. "Open your mouth." "MMH? The Almighty wanted to kiss her?" "No, that wasn't possible. If he wanted to kiss her, she wouldn't have opened her mouth, he should have closed her eyes. However, the last time the Almighty made her close her eyes, he only told her to keep dreaming. He really didn't have a shred of humanity in him. Other people's boyfriends were meant to be sweet, but hers was probably meant to train her ability to withstand blows." "What are you thinking about?" Sure enough, a smile similar to the one before appeared on that extremely good-looking face, with a hint of playfulness. Bojio was about to say that she hadn't expected him to pinch her chin for a kiss. Just then something touched her lips. It was soft and slightly cold. It was like the lightest ice cream. Chapter 1327. Bojio's fingers paused. She tilted her head and saw his face. His lashes were long and narrow. Because of his actions, it hit her face. It was so good-looking that it didn't seem real. The kiss didn't last long. Fortunately, her teammates were focused on the game and no one saw it. Actually, someone had seen it. Rao Rong had just finished a match. When he glanced up at the time, he saw the scene. But he wasn't Lin Feng. He glanced over and smiled. With a cigarette in his mouth, he continued with the second match. In the past, it was hard to imagine. Who would fall in love with the aloof and cold Chinemo fall in love with? After all, when he had known him, he had been a youngster who only acted according to his preferences. He had been so cold that it had been a headache. He definitely didn't have much patience. He hadn't even batted an eyelash at the beautiful female casters. Regardless of how seductive they were, even if they were to stand naked in front of him, he would always have a mocking smile on his face. From the looks of it, when it came to love, he had to be gentle. Rao Rong clicked lightly, entering the next match. Bojio listened to the tapping of the keyboard. She glanced down at the wet lips after he had kissed her. Her heart started to race. But the Almighty was indeed the Almighty. When he didn't speak, he was as beautiful as a fairy. The moment he opened his mouth, he would reveal his true self. "Just as you said, the kiss is over. Open your mouth and let me take a look." "What am I looking at?" Bojio did as she was told. Judging from the Almighty's expression, if she didn't listen, he would throw her out of the window. Chinemo looked at himself. When he saw the redness in the middle of her throat, his deep eyes narrowed slightly. As expected. "Brother Imo?" Bojio arched a brow. She didn't understand what he was looking at. He walked out and asked for a peppermint candy from someone. He stuffed it into her mouth and said in a lazy tone, "Say one more word and I'll quit the game." That was when Bojio realized that he was feeling heartache for her throat. She couldn't help but smile, but she couldn't make it too obvious. Otherwise, the Almighty would say that he was proud again. She sat there for a while before moving again. She leaned over and kissed his ear. "Brother Amal, thank you. The candy is delicious." Chinmo's hands paused. He forgot to deal damage and was killed by the tyrant. When he pulled himself out of that guy's aura, there was already a line of dots on the screen. Is my assassin sleepwalking? He was killed by the tyrant? An assassin can't even kill a monster. I feel like I'm going to lose again. Alright, my mentality has collapsed. How am I supposed to fight like this? Bojio, who hadn't entered the game, turned to take a look. However, Chinemo raised his hand, blocking her from reaching over. His tone was casual. "Give me a glass of water. Isn't there one here?" Bojio pointed to the glass of water beside him. The number one jungler, who had been killed by the tyrant, replied expressionlessly, "It's cold, I want a cup of hot tea to wake me up." "Alright, I'll go look for Grandfather Butler." After reviving in the spring, Chinemo darted into the jungle once more. This time he didn't just kill the tyrant, he had also taken away the ADC. In an instant, the situation in the game changed. His teammates who had won without doing anything were a little confused. Since his jungler was so good, why had he been killed by the tyrant? It wasn't just his teammates, even the opponents were asking the same question. Chinamo moved his fingers, replying, "Lagged internet connection." That was why gamers had the same routine. Regardless of the situation, there would always be a perpetual excuse: lagged internet connection. But only Chinamo knew what had happened in that instant. How could he be affected by a prey to such an extent? Chinamo lowered his gaze, not saying a word. Next, he didn't give her a chance to speak. When he saw that she was about to explain, he stuffed a piece of candy over. Looking at the man's wavering eyes, Yizichin felt a chill run down his spine. Chinamo sneered. She obviously wanted him to feed her the candy personally. It wasn't easy to get tired when they accompanied each other. But in the wee hours of the morning, his shoulders couldn't take it. The weather outside was getting cold. Bojio glanced up, turning to Yin Wuyao. "There's a room, shall we get everyone to sleep in?" "Let's sleep here." Yin Wuyao flicked the ash off his cigarette. "Sitting in front of the computer gives me a higher chance of winning. Everyone probably feels the same way, me too." With that, Yin Wuyao leaned back. "It's good I feel at ease." Bojio understood the feeling he was referring to, her lips curving into a slight smile. Yin Wuyao spoke again, "Little captain." "Mamage?" Bojio arched a brow. Yin Wuyao knew that everyone was asleep. Those who weren't asleep couldn't hear their conversation. "Continue playing if you really can't take it, just wear female clothes, it's nothing. You can just change back." I promised my mom that I wouldn't play anymore." Bojio tilted her head. "Besides, Rao Rong is here. Even without me, as long as the Almighty recovers, Supreme Alliance will still be able to clinch the championship. I've seen the comments online. It doesn't affect me in that aspect, but I don't want people to talk about my gender when you are trying so hard to win. That wouldn't be fair to those who are serious about the competition. Most importantly, I don't want any black marks on his almighty record. Uncle Ian, do you know? That person should stand on the altar, clean and innocent. He shouldn't be like this, where a small streamer could diss him. The moment someone appeared, they would say that he couldn't play anymore because of someone else. He would be treated as the most dangerous person there. All of this. He shouldn't have experienced it. He should have been held in her hands. Regardless of when." With that, she glanced out of the window, the lights of the entire city reflected in her eyes. No one knew. How did success come about? Perhaps no one would care. When this group of people was tired, they would just lie down on the keyboard and close their eyes to sleep. What was the reason? They wanted to win. They wanted to win so badly. They wanted to prove themselves, their teammates, and their team. But how could she become a stumbling block at such a time? Chapter 1328. Night fell. Some people were working hard. Some people didn't understand. In the small computer room, everyone was thinking about fighting for a glimmer of hope. A piece of news appeared on a forum. The title was very eye-catching. "Can this Almighty still represent China in the competition after losing his memory?" Memory loss? When the netizens saw this word, they naturally clicked on it subconsciously. Then they saw the description above. The #1 jungler in the entire server, the most valuable MVP player. There are too many fans who label this Almighty. As someone who likes him, I have to admit that up until now, no one has been able to surpass him in terms of operational awareness. But now that he has lost his memory, everyone has seen the previous competition. There were 5 players and he actually lost 1 life to a streamer. At first, I didn't believe such a thing would happen to him. But when I saw the video, I knew that it wasn't his operation. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have achieved such a result. Some fans don't be in a hurry to talk about his hand injury. His hand injury isn't something that happened in a day or two. Everyone has seen it for themselves. Even during the National League, when he faced the national champion Xiangnan, he didn't lose any of his drive. But look at his operation in this match. It's obvious that he has forgotten his previous awareness. Can he still represent our country in the competition? I know that no one is willing to see this team fall apart, but to be honest, he is really old. Now that he has lost his memory, why can't we, as his fans, think about it from a rational point of view? Is it still suitable for him to play in this match? I believe the National Organizing Committee has an answer in their hearts. After all, this concerns the reputation of our country. This post was too provocative. Whether it was the timing of the post or the topic it was leading to, it caught people off guard. Although he didn't point out who this Almighty was from the description, people could already guess the name. Chinamo. The Almighty in their hearts. In just an instant, the internet exploded. Every fan was burning with anxiety. Their almighty actually lost his memory. Was that possible? Many people were replying to the post asking, "Where did you get the news? How could my almighty Chin lose his memory?" In less than 10 minutes, the post became a hot topic. Too many people joined in, regardless of whether they were fans of esports or had never watched an esports competition before. The scene became out of control. The only thing that could be salvaged was that Feng Yi noticed the post immediately. After all, he was living and eating in the company to keep an eye on the PR side. It was just that he had thought too much about what would happen. She never expected that young Master Chin's amnesia would be exposed, because only the internal members of their team knew about this news. Moreover, he had just told Lin Feng about this news. Under normal circumstances, a person like Feng Yi, who worked hard in the business world, would first suspect Lin Feng. After all, that fellow was indeed a chatterbox. But he knew about the members of Supreme Alliance. Those people might be very talkative. However, he would always think from the other party's point of view. Chapter 1329. Moreover, it was a waste of time to think about who had leaked the secret. What he needed to do now was to salvage the situation. Feng Yi clicked on the mouse, reading the post 3 times. From the moment it was released until now, it had been problematic at every point. Firstly, it was the timing that the person had chosen. It was published in the wee hours. At this time, most of the people online were netizens. The company was basically in a state of rest. If he hadn't been mentally prepared, he wouldn't have seen this post. Secondly, if it had only been about young Master Chin's amnesia, it would have caused an uproar. But without the guidance at the back, he had other ways to deal with it. Supreme Alliance had never found excuses to evade anything. If the fans wanted to know, they could ask the officials directly. But the person who made the post didn't just want to expose young Master Chin's amnesia. The crux was the latter point. It involved the country's reputation, which would definitely make people feel that this matter had to be resolved. This wasn't a post made by a fan. A fan wouldn't do such a thing. Feng Yi frowned. He didn't expect the committee to not care about this matter. Even if they hadn't cared in the past, with the influence of the internet, the committee would have their own considerations. Feng Yi stood up. His first reaction was to use all his connections. He didn't care about the time anymore, dialing a string of numbers. "Hello, Bosley? It's like this, there's something." It was hard for anyone to imagine that there would be a day when the person known as the Smiling Fox would use such a pleading tone to talk to someone. But before he could finish, the person on the other end of the line interrupted him. "Little Feng, I saw the incident with Supreme Alliance. Boss Chin's amnesia is a huge matter. How dare you hide it? It's not that I want to criticize you, but why are you getting worse and worse? It's such a huge piece of news, it's impossible for me not to expose it. I've given you enough face, so don't call me anymore." He wasn't calling Boss Feng warmly, but Little Feng. Feng Yi's fingers froze when he heard the busy tone. The little assistant had woken up as well, watching from the side. Her eyes reddened instantly. What she didn't expect was that the man standing in front of the desk didn't pause at all and made a second call. Again and again he was rejected and even mocked. In the end, someone finally agreed to talk to the organizing committee, but it was just a casual talk. The little assistant looked at CEO Feng, who reached out to tug open his collar, and felt that it was too difficult. How could he still smile when it was so difficult? "Thank you, Mr. Zhang. I'll treat you to a drink later." After Feng Yi hung up, the assistant walked over and saw him light a cigarette. She called out, "CEO Feng." Feng Yi acted as if he hadn't heard anything, obviously thinking about something else. The young assistant raised her voice. "How did you do it?" "What? Like now, I can endure those things." Feng Yi paused, his thin lips curving upwards. "Back when Supreme Alliance was first established, we encountered a lot of such incidents. We are an esports company that deals with the internet. Back then, no one admitted that Supreme Alliance could become popular. We only relied on young Master Chin's face to pull in many resources. Compared to then, things are better now." "You call this better?" The little assistant didn't understand. Feng Yi chuckled. "Of course it's better. Now we are a team that won't embarrass anyone on the battlefield. It's been 3 years and we still have the fans that have been following Supreme Alliance for 3 years. But those fans..." The little assistant was agitated. "If it wasn't for them online..." Before the little assistant could finish, Feng Yi interrupted her. "Don't you misunderstand the word fans? Of course, those troublemakers aren't fans. The fans I'm talking about are the people who are still waiting for young Master Chin and Little Spade to come back. They have feelings. Feelings are a mysterious thing, but everyone will think about it in the dead of night. There is a group of people who, even if they are scarred, broken, and no longer perfect, they will still be able to see them. But what they want to see the most is this group of people, a team that doesn't have a single member. The little assistant was almost disheartened after reading so many replies. Do such fans exist? Yes. Feng Yi glanced back, his eyes bright. There is one thing you have to believe, the type of team Supreme Alliance leaves behind depends on the type of people. The little assistant froze. Everyone said he was a cunning businessman. But once a businessman had feelings, he was even more eye-catching than an ordinary person. Feng Yi didn't dwell on this question for long. He lifted his wrist. It's 1 a.m. now. Make some preparations. One of the team members will be chosen for an interview tomorrow. It's best for the members of Supreme Alliance to talk about it. I'm heading over to the committee. Boss Feng, aren't you going to delete the post? The little assistant was shocked since it was posted on their official account. Feng Yi glanced up. There's no use. The little assistant froze. This was the first time she heard the word, no use, from a man's mouth. The sky outside was dark. It was so dark that there seemed to be no light. It was 1:30 a.m. Quan sat in front of the computer typing a string of words. The words you taught me are indeed impressive. The internet is in a mess. Even if the Almighty has a strong background, he will have to leave this time. Don't be anxious, this is just the first step. The person replied quickly. Quan was shocked. Just the first step? That's right, I'll teach you the second step. Quan's eyes lit up when he saw the message. He glanced at the status displayed on the screen, eager to give it a try. In the computer room of the apartment, Yunhu saw his phone ringing. After muting the sound, he walked out to take the call. The next moment, his eyes widened and his voice deepened. I understand, I'll tell them. Some fell asleep from exhaustion while Captain is still familiarizing himself with the controls. They're all doing well. Mitch, I won't reply this time, I'm just going to check on the situation. After hanging up, Yunhu pushed the door open and walked back. He glanced at Bo Jio before shaking everyone awake. There's news from Old Fox Phone. Captain's amnesia has been exposed and the internet is in a mess. We need to understand the situation so that we can be mentally prepared when the media asks about it. Lin Feng, who had been yawning, woke up instantly. Almost everyone had the same reaction. Unease, extreme unease. Because everyone knew this wasn't a small matter. Other than the main character, Qin Mo, his expression remained the same. There weren't many fluctuations in his emotions, but he turned to glance at the person beside him. His fingers seemed to have paused. Qin Mo's gaze deepened, but he didn't say a word. Lin Feng was the first to open the page to search for the news. Actually, there wasn't a need to search. It had already become a hot topic on the official website. The moment he opened it, he could see it. The number of replies had already exceeded 10,000 and was still rising. The team members crowded over. When they saw the content, they were so angry they wanted to smash the keyboard. Did they understand? They wanted to get together and play another game. Even if it was just one match. They just wanted to do their best in this match. Even their captain, who had amnesia, had sat in front of the computer for 10 hours just to memorize the skills of the characters. What was the point? Did they understand? But it wasn't just one post. Other than this post, there was another one that was slowly becoming popular, and it seemed like it couldn't be stopped. It was in the tone of a fan. Such a big thing happened. As an old fan of Supreme Alliance, I want to know who the person who leaked the news is. This kind of thing should only be known within the team. They even said that they are as close as a family. Ever since Spade Z joined, there hasn't been any peace. Who was the first to know about this and say it out loud? I think we should look for it. This type of post was obviously to stir up momentum. But there were fans who couldn't understand and really replied below. Other than Spade Z, the one who replied the most was Lin Feng. The reason they gave was simple. After all, he was a chatterbox and definitely didn't tell anyone easily. In the end, it was exposed by his fans. After Lin Feng saw the replies, his first reaction was to look at the expressions of his team members. No matter how fast my mouth is, I wouldn't say such things so casually. Before he could finish, suddenly there was a loud bang. Coco, who hadn't said a word, lifted the keyboard. I've had enough. The more good-tempered and cute a person was, the more heart-wrenching it was when he was angry. Coco stood up, as though he was going to use all his strength to smash everything in the computer room. Gaming, why do we have to play games? What kind of lousy profession is this? How many people do we have to interact with? These likes, are these F*** king likes? Anyone who knows what it means to like someone wouldn't be like this. I've had enough of such likes. I'm almost out of breath. Quit the industry King Asian Cup. Whoever wants to play can play. I'll touch this thing again. Chapter 1330. Coco was very touched to hear such comforting words. But just as he was about to hug little Spade back, he glanced up and saw his captain's smile. The meaning behind that smile was simple. If you dare to hug me back, I'll break your paws. Coco was shocked. Little Spade, you can console me, but why are you hugging me? Do you want Captain to tear me apart? With that, Coco stopped and calmed himself down. As expected, compared to the internet attacks, he was more afraid of Captain's gaze. Bojio felt hurt. Shouldn't little Sissy be extremely touched at this moment? Why was he so afraid? Bojio was still raising her brows. The atmosphere in the team had changed completely. Everyone knew why Coco had such a reaction. They were all suppressing their laughter. Lin Feng let out a long breath and said, "Deal with it." Yes, since it happened, they had to solve it. This was their usual style. They would deal with it when they couldn't solve it. Besides, they believed Feng Yi was already in the process. As for the process, they would have to wait until dawn. From 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. this was the most difficult time. Bojio suggested, "Go and rest, put aside the training. Especially at this time, you have to be more alert in front of the media. I'm guessing old Fox Feng has some plans. Why don't we wait for his call?" Sure. Yin Wuyao was the first to stand up. He reached out and massaged the back of his neck. It's important to relax before the match. If you can't sleep, you can play cards. It's fine to play cards. Feng Shang blushed. I am good at cards. Bojio laughed. Then let's play cards. I'll be in the same group as Brother Imo. Chin Imo arched a brow. Are you sure I know how to play? Brother Imo, don't worry. Even if you lost your memory, no one is better than you when it comes to scheming. Bojio lowered her voice. Chin Imo smiled. Is that a compliment? Of course. Bojio adjusted her collar. I'll help you draw the cards later. I won't brag about anything else, but my luck is really good. 10 minutes later. Chin Imo glanced at the cards that a certain someone had drawn and arched a brow. Is this what you meant by having good luck? Bojio, who had drawn 3 useless tiles in a row, was frustrated. Why wasn't this mahjong giving her any face? Brother Imo, actually this isn't a big deal. If you touch more you can hit 13 youngsters. Bojio tried to clear her name. Chin Imo scoffed, replying slowly, by the time you're done with the 13, the others will have already won. Bojio. Why did he have to say something that everyone knew? Brother Imo, didn't you say you don't know how to play? Chin Imo arched a brow and glanced at the cards on the table lazily. His voice was faint. It's such a simple game. You can learn it after 1 round. With that, he held onto her wrist with one hand and reached out with the other. He picked up a card and pushed it forward. Pick yourself, all colors. Everyone was stunned. Lin Feng felt even more devastated. Didn't I play this card in the last round? Captain, why didn't you eat who back then? Is that so? Chin Imo replied nonchalantly, I guess I didn't know how to play just now. I wouldn't believe you. He was obviously trying to pick himself. Lin Feng scratched his head and glanced over at Baby Feng, who had said he was a thief. He was still arranging the cards. He face-bombed. Was this called a thief? It seemed like Baby Feng didn't understand the word thief well enough. Bojio was delighted, starting to collect the money. Lin Feng rolled up his sleeves, preparing for a counterattack on the 3rd round. Who knew that as soon as the cards were placed on the table, she heard the person opposite her speak. Even her tone was very casual. Do you know why your luck is so bad? Bojio glanced over. What? Because you hugged someone you shouldn't have. Chin Imo raised his hand casually, throwing out a card. Everyone, they had been wondering why their captain hadn't mentioned anything. So this was what he was waiting for. The person who shouldn't have been hugged shrunk his shoulders, biting the bunny's ear. He had a feeling that their captain would remember this for a long time. As expected. This was the 3rd time Coco had been intercepted by his previous boss, Chin Imo. He started to realize that his captain wasn't trying to win money, he was trying to attack him. Anyone who played mahjong would understand. That kind of joy when you were about to push your cards and announce your victory. But suddenly, someone was in front of you. You would feel like your entire life was gloomy. And it wasn't just the 1st time, it was the 3rd time. 3 times. Coco was starting to miss the good things about his fans. Compared to his little plushies, the captain was simply not human. His teammates who were playing mahjong at the same table had to hold back their laughter. The atmosphere was exceptionally harmonious. Yin Wuyao was right. It was right to relax before a big competition. At least compared to before, the layer of alienation on the surface was gone. Chinamo won just like that. Some people even felt that their captain had never lost his memory. In that instant, he seemed to have calmed down. Even though there were too many people in this world who didn't understand and cursed. But there was one person. Ever since he created Supreme Alliance, he had never given up. He understood your passion even though he never said it. He became the support of the entire team. Even now, those people were shouting for him to leave. We all said that you would get what you give. In reality, this was wrong. Giving didn't mean you would get anything. It meant that you didn't let down what you fought for. The game started again. It was as though all emotions were swept away. Grandfather Butler even prepared beer. Everyone took a sip, flipped a peanut in their mouth and continued to play mahjong, enjoying themselves. Bojo looked at this scene and found an excuse to go to the washroom. Grandfather Butler didn't say anything. After he followed her out, he said, "The laptop is ready, it's in your bedroom." Since she planned to hack into the network, she wouldn't let anyone see. Bojo turned her body, moving the USB flash drive and pressing both hands on the pure black keyboard. The crackling sound was so fast that no one could tell what she was doing. The only thing that could be seen was a letter flashing on the screen. Then came the code. 2 posts. As expected, it was the same IP. Bojo looked at the results and was even more certain of her guess. She continued to search for the IP address. Final destination: Jiang City, Xinghong Apartment, Unit 8, Building 6, 603. Bojo followed the IP address and found the location, directly hacking into the opponent's computer. At this moment, Quan didn't know. He had just ordered takeout and was planning to eat while watching the show. Now the internet was fighting. No matter how united a team was, the fans might not necessarily like everyone in the team, so they could only fight. Who cares about the overall situation? Quan laughed and planned to post another post. But for some reason he couldn't operate it. It wasn't a problem with the account. Maybe the account could be banned. But he had many other accounts. Why couldn't he operate the others? Not only couldn't he operate it, but he couldn't even log in. It kept showing that it was a page error. What the hell is going on? Quan only noticed the obvious abnormality but didn't know when the camera function of the computer was turned on. It automatically entered his live broadcast room. And in that room there was only one message. It was the chat record between him and a stranger. This chat record appeared on the internet in the form of a screenshot. Everyone was stunned. They were obviously looking for trouble with the Supreme Alliance. And it was premeditated. They even dared to sow discord. Some of the fans finally calmed down. They thought about it. At such a time they still came to the official site to cause trouble. This was obviously helping the black belt. After some people realized this, they froze and broke out in cold sweat. Some people still couldn't figure it out, but fortunately the truth was out. Gradually, some attentive fans started to notice something. I was wondering why this netizen wouldn't let go of Almighty Chin. So it's because he has a grudge. Grudge. Why do you say that? Everyone's first reaction to that picture would be to find out what the two of them were talking about. But one of them should be recognized by the netizens. Isn't that the live streamer Quan who played games with Almighty Chin and won by luck? Later, after he died in the room, he was tortured by Almighty Chin and was killed as soon as he came out of the spring. His gaming experience was terrible to a certain extent. No wonder he tried so hard to influence. Everything else aside, I just hope that the fans of the Supreme Alliance will think about this matter and what we should do. Almighty Chin has indeed lost his memory. The organizing committee can't not make a decision. We are upset, but the Supreme Alliance must be even more upset. I played basketball in school. Although it's different from esports, but in any competitive event, how can they play without the support of the entire team? I can even understand how much psychological pressure they are under at this time. Do you think Almighty Chin still has a chance to participate? Just thinking about this makes me very upset. But no matter what, I will go to the venue and buy tickets because I understand that waiting for them is the only way to support them. The person who posted this never thought that there would be a day when his post would gain so many fans. Fengyi was right about one thing. There were people like that. But people like that also needed to be driven. People kept coming out and changing things bit by bit. Although it couldn't suppress Quan's post for the time being. But a single spark could start a prairie fire. And Quan, who did these things, only realized that his actions had been exposed half an hour later. He wanted to explain in a panic but realized that his live broadcast room had long been turned on. The number of people watching online was unprecedentedly high and directly saw his expression. At that moment he knew that he was finished. Perhaps in their circle the bottom line was very low. But there was one thing that people hated to play tricks. This was something that all the netizens wouldn't forgive. Moreover, he used tricks to frame a professional team that was about to win glory for the country. No one would forgive him. From stealing Qin Mo's move to not admitting to it to this intentional action. This was simply challenging the most basic bottom line of a person. In an instant, the public opinion on the internet changed. Quan was scolded to the point that he didn't dare to do a live broadcast. At first, he complained that he was wronged and said that he was confused. He only did it when others said that. Now that he thought about it, he was simply being used. Would Bojio fall for this? This was the biggest joke in the world. The main culprit was someone else. But an accomplice was also a type of murderer. How could he say that he wasn't guilty when it was already carried out? She wasn't the Almighty and wouldn't consider so much. But there was one point. Everyone in the family was gaming properly and preparing for the competition. You came up with one plan after another and still say that you were wronged? Do you understand this saying? The one who started it first was cheap. After dealing with Quan, she didn't turn off her computer. Instead, she continued to dig, intending to dig out the culprit. But because of this, Bojio had prepared herself. Fan Jiao was already prepared. After briefing Quan, she went offline early. She used a computer from a small internet cafe in an alley, so it was easy to clean up the traces. Bojio found the place but was aware that the computer had been turned off. Before it was turned off, it had been processed in detail. There was only one person who had such conditions, liked to use such methods, and was still haunting, Fan Jia. Bojio glanced at the screen. She curled her fingers and knocked on the table. In the golden triangle, she had placed all her attention on the Almighty, including how to get rid of his mistrust and murderous intent and how to stick to him. But she hadn't paid attention to the situation over there. After all, Kawang was already dead. The organization had been disbanded and many of its members had been sent to China. Even the poppies had been burned, leaving nothing behind. It was to prevent the darkness from rising again. Fan Jia hadn't been caught? Bojio frowned slightly. What followed was a vague sense of unease. She wasn't sure what she was feeling uneasy about. She stood up and was about to light a cigarette. But before she could reach for it, someone pushed open the door and walked in. My sugar daddy is really something. Of all things, why did you learn to smoke? There wasn't a hint of anger in that cold voice. It was so familiar that Bojio paused. She finally knew what she was feeling uneasy about. In fact, in this world, other than her little Princess Qin, what else could make her feel uneasy? What's wrong? Qin hadn't thought much of his words, but when he saw Bojio's face, his fingers stilled. Is this guy unhappy? His words were usually more vicious, but he had never seen such an expression on her face. What was going on? That was Qin Mo's first reaction. He didn't even have time to think about it. Bojio could hear the concern in his voice. She smiled. Nothing, I just suddenly craved candy and couldn't find it. That's why I wanted to smoke. Qin Mo glanced at her, his voice calm. Come over. Chapter 1331. Bojio walked over. The moment she walked over, she was pulled into his embrace. She could smell the faint scent of mint and tobacco. It seemed as though even after an entire night, he would still feel refreshed. He didn't seem like someone who had just left the poker table. There's no sugar this time, there's artificial warmth, do you want it? Qin Mo's voice was faint. Bojio chuckled. Can I give you another kiss? Dream on. Qin Mo hugged her in his arms. After rejecting her, he lowered his lids and planted a light kiss on the top of her head. Bojio stilled, hugging him with a slight smile. Even the air she breathed in was sweet. The people around the table were smart enough not to ask where their captain had gone. At the start, they were still in a heated discussion. Everyone's mind was preoccupied with this matter, so it was impossible for them to fall asleep. At around 4 p.m., Feng Yi called to inform them that there was a change in the public opinion and for them to rest. Lin Feng couldn't believe his ears. After all, under normal circumstances after such an incident, it would take 2 days for the heat to subside. He hadn't expected the change to happen so quickly. Feng Yi didn't hide it from him. Someone helped us and found the person who posted it. The 2 posts came from the same IP and the person who posted it was the streamer who provoked you guys. Lin Feng's eyes widened. Should I say the netizens are too capable? They aren't netizens. Rao Rong, who was standing at the side, suddenly spoke up, glancing upstairs with an enigmatic smile. It might be a hacker who fought for justice. Feng Yi chuckled. Probably. With the change in the public opinion, everyone felt relieved. Feng Shang stuttered as he asked his brother, Then, will Captain be able to participate in the competition? I don't know yet, it depends on the committee's decision. Feng Yi was logical. This was related to his identity as a businessman. Some of the influence could be eliminated, but he wasn't sure what the committee would decide. The only thing he was sure of was that no news was the best news. The committee was also considering. The meeting was scheduled for the next day. Supreme Alliance still had a chance. Feng Yi rubbed his temples, continuing, Oh right, is Yao Yao still there? Yes. Give her the phone. All right. Shui Yao Yao took the phone in confusion. Feng Yi chuckled and said, The competition is coming up soon. This is the last interview for the team. It's a solo interview and they will definitely ask about what happened during this period of time. Get ready tomorrow. The interview will be at 9 in the morning. I'll pick you up then. Shui Yao Yao was confused. Meh. Captain, Uncle Ian and God Rao are all here. Meh. Was she suitable? She had no experience and her mechanics were not the best in the team. You're the only girl other than Little Spade. It's not convenient for her to come out and young Master Qin can't do the interview. Don't worry, I'll be by your side during the interview, Feng Yi said in a well-ironed suit. Shui Yao Yao nodded after a moment. I understand, CEO Feng. Don't worry, I'll prepare well. For the last time. She wanted to speak up for Highness Jiao, for the captain and for the team. Everyone sitting in front of the card table seemed to know this. The captain might not be able to play. Because his amnesia was a fact. It was destined to be a sleepless night. Even Bo Jiao couldn't sleep well, even though Qin Mo was within her reach. She furrowed her brows. She didn't know why, but she dreamt of the time when she had left when they were young. She had leaned against the car window wanting to take one last look at him. But she had forgotten that the night before, they had gotten into an argument. In 2 days it would be the Chinese New Year. He must be preparing to return to China for Chinese New Year. He must be packing his luggage in his room. Why would he be waiting for her in the courtyard? That was why she had been so depressed that day. They had parted because of an argument. At that time, Bo Jiao had thought that if they had parted happily, they might have been able to maintain communication. But when she had sneaked back to take a look, he had disappeared. The scene in her dream made Bo Jiao grab Qin Mo's hand instinctively. She tightened her grip. Qin Mo's eyes deepened. What exactly was she dreaming about? Was she that sad? Qin Mo reached out and lifted her chin. After caressing it, he leaned forward and planted a kiss on her lips. This was the little gangster's favorite. But this time it didn't change. Qin Mo looked at her face. It felt as though there was a rock pressing down on his chest. It was unusually irritating. That was enough, she was just a prey. You have already invested too much attention on her. That was enough. That was what he thought, but he hugged her, the kiss deepening. His motive was to wake someone up. Bo Jiao was indeed awake. When she realized that the Almighty was kissing her, she paused and wanted to return it. But Qin Mo reached out to stop her. Tell me, what did you dream about? In America we were still young. We separated after a fight and I sneaked back to look for you. It was a pity that you had already returned. Bo Jiao pursed her lips. Perhaps it was because of her small and tender face that even someone like Qin Mo could comfort her. It was just a dream. It wasn't a dream, it was real. Bo Jiao looked into his eyes. It really happened. So, Brother Mo, promise me something. Don't leave me, alright? I'm so good looking and rich. I can even take revenge for you in the game. Where are you going to find such a good sugar daddy? Qin Mo replied slowly, The points you mentioned are easy to find, but it isn't easy to find someone as thick-skinned as you. Bo Jiao. She thought he had become gentler when he took the initiative to kiss her. As expected, gentler wasn't the word used on the Almighty. That's why I don't intend to waste any more effort. Qin Mo reached out to pinch her face. Coincidentally, I like your thick skin. Bo Jiao smiled, reaching out to hug his waist. She wanted to say that it was fine if he didn't regain his memory. It would be fine as long as he was by her side. But she was worried that with his personality, he wouldn't be able to regain his memory. Thus, she decided to forget it. It was better to be together like this. This time it wasn't a nightmare. He held her in his arms and pressed her head against his shoulder. He had no intention of letting go. The two of them were good-looking to begin with. Their posture, coupled with the faint rays of the morning sun, made them look even more beautiful. He was wearing a white sweater while she was leaning against him. Both of their sides were enough to cause a scream. But it seemed as though they belonged only to each other. The next day, the sun was just right. Qin Mo's participation was still up in the air. The outcome wasn't something anyone could control. But Feng Yi still wanted to give it a try. No one knew he hadn't slept the entire night, except for the shadow following behind him. If it had been any other time, Feng Yi might have noticed the shadow. But right now, all he could think of was how to tell the truth about Chinamo to the committee and the fans who no longer believed in him. He wanted to tell them that even if he had lost his memory, his instincts were still there. He was an important pillar of support for the team. Hence, Feng Yi spent 3 hours to compile a detailed introduction. There wasn't any sensational content, just Chinmo's statistics for the day. After he was done, he started contacting the media. There wasn't any time to rest. Until he drove to Little Spade's apartment to fetch Shui Yaoyao. That was when Fan Jia knew her chance had come. That's right, she had been keeping an eye on Feng Yi's movements since yesterday. She wanted to find out where he was. She had already analyzed it. The afternoon she had alighted, all the members of Supreme Alliance had left the club. But she didn't know where they had gone. The Asian Cup was around the corner. It wasn't possible for them to have fun at this time. Or to move out as a group. Unless they were meeting someone important. That could only be Chinamo. It was a pity she had missed the first chance to follow him. Ever since she had missed the previous chance, she had been keeping an eye on Feng Yi. But this person was really too smart. He was so smart that she had almost been discovered twice. Fortunately, he had been extremely busy recently. Coupled with the things she had created, he wasn't as indestructible as before. She had followed him for so long, and today she had finally found a small loophole. She stood at the foot of the building, her lips curling upwards. She glanced at the rising elevator and memorized the number. Her eyes dimmed and she hid again. Regardless of what she wanted to do, she couldn't let anyone see her. At least it wasn't suitable now. Fan Jia pressed down on the brim of her cap and smiled. She had finally found him and was about to snatch him back to her. She couldn't be like this. Ijin, she should change out of her smelly clothes and put on some makeup since it was still early before nightfall. She had plenty of time. Deep down, Fan Jia didn't feel that there was anything wrong with ruining Chinmo's competition. That kind of person should go and do bigger things. Whatever she did, it was because she liked him. He wouldn't blame her. But Fan Jia had never thought about it. How could she talk about liking someone after ruining their most important thing? Upstairs, Feng Yi saw the few people still rubbing their eyes. He smiled. Why are you all up so early? I just slept. With that, Rao Rong added, afraid that he would be burdened. We played until 4 a.m., the two people on the second floor probably can't be woken up. Lin Feng even kicked his pillow on the floor. Feng Yi glanced up at the clock. The results will be out in the afternoon. I'm going to fetch Yao Yao for an interview. Immerse. Rao Rong opened his mouth wanting to say something. In the end he only smiled. Good luck. Feng Yi hooked his jacket with one hand. I will. Just from the fact that Feng Yi had specially come to fetch her. It was obvious how important this interview was. Everyone seemed to be aware of it. Supreme Alliance had really been pushed to the lowest point. There were voices of support and opposition online. But at this moment, the more support there was, the greater the chances of them winning. The committee would make a decision in the afternoon. Feng Yi used his many years of connections to exchange for a promise that he wouldn't use them to stir up trouble. He would only let them say what they wanted to say on the last day before the competition. It was too difficult. The longer they stayed in the industry, the more they understood what it meant. Today Shui Yaoyao was different. She usually didn't wear makeup and she even cut her hair, leaving it down to her shoulders. She was wearing the team uniform that Bo Jio had given her the other day. On it, she had written the words Your Highness Jio, and the bright support symbol. It was as if she wanted to tell everyone about it. Supreme Alliance hadn't fallen. Feng Yi paused slightly when he saw Shui Yaoyao. Then he reached out and caressed her head. Good girl. The clock pointed at 8 a.m. The well-mannered grandfather butler didn't ask them to stay for breakfast because he knew they had more important things to do. 9:30 a.m. The interview room of a certain platform was ready. After Shui Yaoyao sat down, the host said, I saw your solo match, it was amazing. Thank you. Shui Yaoyao knew the host would be polite. The interviewer smiled. Can you tell us how you got to where you are now? Your growth has surprised many people. Firstly, it's because I like it, and secondly, it's because my teammates are here. Shui Yaoyao still couldn't let it go. They helped me a lot. The interviewer changed the topic, landing on the most controversial topic of the day. Recently, Supreme Alliance has attracted a lot of attention online. But this time it's different. The previous time it was about your vice captain, Spade Z. This time it's your captain, Chinamo. Are you feeling complicated? Chapter 1332. The interview was broadcasted on the official website. It seemed to be responding. Forwarding, commenting, continuing to forward. From the internet to the real world. Everyone started to help Supreme Alliance with publicity. There were even some rich fans who spontaneously organized an entire fleet of cars, temporarily forming a colorful painting just for support. Many people were saying that the 2018 Asian Cup would be more popular than ever. Firstly, it was because the venue was chosen with great difficulty to be in China. Secondly, it was because of the influence Supreme Alliance had brought about. It was really extraordinary. At the scene, all the tickets related to Supreme Alliance were sold out. Many people had already arrived in Jiang City before the start of the competition. They didn't force others to like this team. But when the reporter held the microphone and asked them, "Why are you here so early? The temperature in Jiang City is very low, isn't it cold?" "It's cold, but it's worth it." A girl smiled and waved her ticket. "My boyfriend gave it to me and we only got to know each other because of Supreme Alliance." The reporter was shocked. Because of Supreme Alliance? Immerse, at that time he always imitated Almighty Qin as an assassin and was jealous because I liked Big Spade. In the end, Big Spade and Almighty Qin got together and he told me, "Look, your Almighty is with my Almighty, let's be together too." The girl smiled. "I'm a pit when I play games. When I play as a long-range shooter, I can't hit the target accurately, I run slowly and I don't understand positioning, so I'm always killed. He would always rush out to avenge me after I die. Even though he isn't that good, do you understand the feeling? I always feel that someone who loves Supreme Alliance so much wouldn't have a bad heart and would always be more mature than others. When we are together, we don't speak much and feel like we are being taken care of." The last time I saw Little Spade wearing a sock puppet and saying that her boyfriend was jealous and that she had to coax him. At that time, I thought that he had always been the one coaxing me and I had never coaxed him. Now that we are about to graduate, I'm always worried if we can be together in the future. Unexpectedly, he proposed to me that day. He said that even Almighty Z has to coax her boyfriend, so how can he coax his girlfriend? It's not that we don't quarrel, but sometimes when we quarrel we look at those people and it reminds us of the sweet times. The reporter didn't expect to interview such a person. Afraid that it would be seen as a show, he didn't say much. Even though he knew that if this interview was broadcasted, the click rate wouldn't be too bad. To avoid suspicion, he still moved the microphone to the one below. Then he froze. It was an auntie with a load on her shoulder. Her hair was a little white and her back was slightly arched. She was dressed very cleanly, as if she had specially waited for this day. However, she still had to make a living, so she brought along the things she wanted to sell, a small amount of cigarettes and some bottled water. She held the ticket in one hand and asked the person beside her, "Is this Supreme Alliance's match ticket? Are we going to watch it here?" When the reporters saw this scene, they were shocked. After all, it was impossible for people of his age to watch esports competitions. Moreover, there was only an elderly auntie, which made her seem even more out of place. After the camera swept over, both the reporters and the cameraman felt that this was going to be a hot topic. They passed the microphone over. "Auntie, sorry to disturb you, but we are really curious. After all, apart from some young girls, there are also guys who like to play this game. There's only one person of your age here, so if it's convenient for you, can you tell us why you bought this final match ticket? Is it for the younger generation in your family?" Unexpectedly, the auntie hurriedly waved her hands. "No, I bought it for myself. After waiting for so long, I can finally support those children. I'm really happy." "You bought it for yourself? Then you..." With that, the reporter paused. "Do you know anyone in Supreme Alliance?" After all, the word children had been mentioned. The auntie seemed to be in a hurry since the camera had been pointing towards her. But then, she seemed to have recalled something and gradually stopped. "I don't know them, but they have helped me a lot. I am grateful to them for providing me with a lawyer when I seek redress for my daughter's grievances." With that, she paused. "Host, can I use your platform to say a few words to them?" The reporter's fingers paused. "Go ahead." But he wasn't sure if Supreme Alliance would see it. "I've watched your competition on the big screen. I'm old and don't understand competitions, but when I see you win, I feel especially happy. This is even better. Andy has earned quite a bit of money from selling things, so I can go in and watch your competition." The reporter didn't know how to continue this sentence. Every single one of them seemed to be touched by their own words. He knew very well. Why were they standing here? Buying tickets with smiles on their faces. They wouldn't force you to like the team they supported. Instead, when you asked, they would speak with assurance or smile shyly. Regardless of the expression, they had never left this place. They seemed to be saying it with all their might. "You might think that we are just fireflies, but together we are a torch. A torch that protects the team. Are we still interviewing? The cameraman asked. Originally, they wanted to catch some questions from the scene to create a topic of discussion. But it was obvious that this time, they were destined to return empty-handed. The reporter had played games before, but that was a long time ago. Back then, there wasn't even a Supreme Alliance. They didn't really like it, but the games that seemed to appear in their lives. King of Fighters, Super Mario, Dance Dance Group, Crossing the Line of Fire, Warcraft, Jade Dynasty, and now Hero. These were all familiar names that seemed to remind them of that period of time, what they were like, what kind of friends they had by their side, and what they were closer than lovers. They would talk about everything, even going to the toilet together, having little secrets between girls. They would climb walls together, learn to smoke, and be worried that their parents would see them, turning on the electric fan and blowing continuously. In the end, if they didn't blow clean, they would fight, using the excuse that it was a battle between men. In reality, they hadn't even grown their hair back then. The reporter lowered his head, looking at the template that someone had given him. With a wave of his hand, the paper was torn to shreds. Of course we have to interview them, but we have to do it according to the actual situation. But above, I'll take responsibility. 2 words, end. Chapter 1333. Fan Jia tightened her grip when she saw the report. This was the first time she felt like she couldn't control the situation. She had assumed that even with Z around, she wouldn't be able to control the hearts of others. After all, she knew better than them how they thought. She hadn't expected someone to step forward. Fan Jia's eyes dimmed, but there was nothing she could do. She had wanted to approach them from the perspective of a fan and then poach them. Who would have thought that in the end she would only be able to pry away a few scattered people? They weren't going to be of any use. After all, Feng Yi wasn't a pushover, he would definitely control the public relations. Fan Jia realized that her plan might fail and started to panic. At this moment, Bo Jiu made her move. When it was time to contact young Master Tang, she wouldn't hold back. Of course, she couldn't make such a call in front of others. She found an excuse to enter the washroom. After closing the door, the call went through. She didn't say anything unnecessary, just one sentence. Fan Jia is in Jiang City. She was last seen in the old alley of the Great Wall Street. There are many inns and internet cafes there, but similarly, there are many surveillance cameras. The person on the other end laughed. Are you only going to tell me Fan Jia's location? Aren't you going to tell me your location? Or rather, where are you hiding Chinemo? It isn't difficult for us to find him since you have to participate in the competition. That's true. Why don't you let young Master Tang handle the matter and allow the Almighty to participate in the competition? You can capture him. What do you think? Bo Jiu arched a brow, her fingers tapping on the phone as though she was negotiating. Z, do you think I don't know what you are up to? Didn't you already know that we wouldn't capture him in public? That's why you brought him to Jiang City. It is indeed troublesome to capture Chinemo since we have to think of an excuse. But no matter what, it won't be able to convince the masses. When young Master Tang said these words, he tugged on his tie. The latter part was what I said during the meeting. It's always difficult to persuade those people. Bo Jiu replied calmly, Young Master Tang, you are being humble. This level of deception should be a piece of cake for you. The person on the other end of the line didn't reply. Instead, he changed his tone and said slowly, as long as you can ensure that Chinemo doesn't do anything, we won't do anything. If he shows any signs, you have to be prepared. My boyfriend is busy dating me every day. He doesn't have time to do anything else. Bo Jiu replied casually, but she was well aware of the situation. If you guys can't catch him, I don't mind doing it myself. You? You want to commit a crime? Z, this is China, not the Fifth Avenue. Are you here to capture or kill? Focus on your competition. We'll take care of everything else. Being obedient isn't for your own good, it's for your family's good. You should understand what I'm saying. Of course Bo Jiu understood. That was why she hadn't launched a large-scale attack to track Fan Jia down. During the probation period, whatever she did would be blamed on the Almighty, so she couldn't do it. If everything goes according to plan, we should be able to find him tonight. These were young Master Tang's last words. This person always did what he said. Since he said it was night, it wouldn't be past midnight. Bo Jiu relaxed. The moment she hung up, she received another call. Was Feng Yi? Bo Jiu pressed the answer button. A voice came from the other side. It seemed to be somewhere else, and the background noise was a little noisy. Tell those bastards not to worry. With just a few words, Bo Jiu smiled. The committee has agreed? MMH. Even though he was tired, he wanted to share his joy with someone. But the committee still needs to see how good he is. If he's still top-notch, the name list will remain the same. Boggio arched a brow. What do you think? It's too late for a match, isn't it? I sent the footage of your training yesterday to the committee. They're looking for someone to analyze it. Feng Yi paused. Let's wait a little longer, the results will be out soon. A chance is better than no chance at all. All right. Boggio's eyes lit up. Feng Yi was right, there was still a chance, at this moment. Within the committee, a person led the three almighties from Xiangnan into the room. The person at the front was Xiangnan's captain, Xiao Jing. Goddess Luo stood on the left while Zhao Sanpang stood on the right. Honestly, it was such a sensitive time for the committee to invite him. Zhao Sanpang was still a little apprehensive. The person sitting in the middle of the meeting smiled. Sit, don't stand. I called you here because we need you to complete a task with us. Task? Zhao Sanpang turned his head to look at his captain with a dumbfounded face. There wasn't a single ripple in his emotions. With such a comparison, he felt that he was making a fuss out of nothing. Zhao Sanpang told himself to calm down, otherwise, it would damage his divinity. But before he could adjust his sitting posture, a video appeared on the big screen. They had been hearing about the ID in the video frequently. After all, a certain someone was flaunting their love. It was infuriating. Chinamo is currently using this account. As he spoke, his gaze landed on their faces. I believe all of you have heard about the exposure on the internet. It is undeniable that Chinamo is an outstanding esports player, but now that he has lost his memory, we can't decide if he is still suitable for the Asian Cup. The video was taken from the internet and the data is reliable. Take a look and analyze it from a technical point of view. What do you think of Chinmo's current standards? Zhao Sanpang glared. Why did Xiangnan have to do such a thankless job? Before he could speak, his wrist was pressed down. Beauty Luo smiled, gesturing for him to tilt his head. That was when Zhao Sanpang realized that his captain had started to observe the movements of the character in the video. The other members of the committee were watching as well. Since they were in this industry, they had a certain level of understanding. There were even retired players amongst them. But the ones who truly understood were Xiangnan. After all, they had been the national champions for 3 consecutive years. That wasn't all, they had even been the runner-up in the Asian Cup. It was more suitable for them to provide their opinions on technical aspects. The video wasn't short. It wasn't just one match but 3 consecutive matches. After it ended, Chapter 1334. I don't think Chinamo is suitable for the Asian Cup. Forget about his amnesia. Even with the injury on his hand, he is bound to make mistakes in the competition. There are too many unpredictable factors in the competition. With his amnesia, he isn't as good as he used to be. He won't be able to create any miracles. Even though it's a pity, I personally admire Chinamo. But considering the big picture, I will vote against him, the person said resolutely. The people sitting next to him seemed to be discussing and considering his suggestion. At this moment, Xiao Jing spoke up. Memberly is right, Chinamo isn't as good as he used to be, but his improvement is far greater than anyone else's. From knowing nothing about the game to a 1v1 duel, he only used 1 round. After that, he didn't lose any of the subsequent rounds. Furthermore, the heroes he controlled were different. At the start of every match, he seemed to be understanding his character's skills. After 3 minutes, he would be able to learn them and even kill with a backhand. In the middle lane, he played as a sorcerer. It seemed casual, but every move he made was predictive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been caught by the assassin. If anyone were to pay attention to his statistics, they would know that even though his score isn't the highest, his participation rate is 100%. These matches might seem to be controlled by the assassin, but in reality, no matter which character he plays, he is the one leading the rhythm. Furthermore, he wins every match. This game might not be difficult for professional players, but not all professional players are able to win every match. This is because other than himself, the other 4 teammates aren't controllable. If he wants to win, he has to control these factors and control the rhythm. Not only does he have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of his teammates, he has to be able to guess the positions of his opponents. At the very least, he has to achieve these 2 points. I won't talk about positioning and maneuvering because there are people here who don't play games. I just want to ask who can do it. His voice was calm. This caused the resolute man to hesitate. Xiao Jing glanced at him. In the game, no one is more talented than Chinamo. Even after so many years, I don't want to admit it, but it is a fact. Besides, he might have forgotten some things, but his body still remembers them. There is one thing that I don't agree with committee member Li because he is my opponent. Objectively speaking, Xiangnan is stronger than Supreme Alliance, but these people will always shatter my understanding. Supreme Alliance is a team that can never be judged from a 1-minute perspective because they will grow stronger with their opponents, and that is even more true for their captain. Mr. Li said that he couldn't create any miracles, but I didn't think so. After all, many people thought that he couldn't stop me, Fat Tai and Luo Luo all by himself. But in the end he fought 1 against 3, and with a sliver of his health, he broke through the crystal and ignited the whole of China's esports. At that time no one thought highly of him, just like now. Committee member Li didn't say anything else. He swallowed all the words he wanted to say and rubbed his forehead. He put down his pen and seemed to be thinking. The conference room was silent. Seeing the situation, the person in the middle scanned the room. Now you should have your own thoughts. Let's vote. Raise your hand if you agree. Xiao Jing was the first to raise his hand. Fatty and the others naturally followed. As for the others, regardless of what Xiao Jing said, they felt that it was safer to be conservative. In their position they didn't wish to be meritorious. If Qin Mo really participated and anything happened during the competition, they would have to bear the responsibility. On the other hand, if Qin Mo didn't participate, at least there wouldn't be any accidents. For the first time, Fatty found it hard to breathe when he saw this. He didn't understand the meaning of calling them over. Only the 3 of them raised their hands, the others didn't seem to have any intention of agreeing. Just when Xiao Jing was about to put down his raised hand and leave, a voice suddenly rang out. Committee member Li seemed to have made a decision as he raised his hand. The 2 people sitting on his left and right also moved in the next second. Fatty's eyes started to waver in surprise. I was there for the competition, Xiao Jing mentioned. Committee member Li smiled. At that time, everyone stood up and applauded as though they were using up all their emotions. It would be a pity if a contestant like Qin Mo was stopped. Hearing this, Xiao Jing's eyes lit up and he only said 2 words, "Thank you." Just like that, the 3 votes became 6. Qin Mo was saved. When it was time to leave, someone called out to Xiao Jing. "Captain Xiao, you are so smart, why can't you understand today's meeting? Why are you still speaking up for Qin Mo? If you didn't say anything, someone would have suggested for you to join Supreme Alliance temporarily and return to another team after the Asian Cup. It isn't impossible since it is for the greater good." Committee member Zhang, you seem to have misunderstood. Xiao Jing's voice was emotionless. I'm just speaking from a technical standpoint. If Qin Mo is too weak, I would vote against him directly. Besides, the good and bad of every team depends on the team members' respect for their captain. For a team like Supreme Alliance, they wouldn't think that I can replace Qin Mo. Similarly, the people from Xiangnan wouldn't let me leave either. Considering the bigger picture, it's better to leave more choices to the participating members. If emotions are present, they might not be able to perform well in the Asian Cup. With that, Xiao Jing walked into the elevator with Fatty and Luo Luo. Left behind, committee member Zhang almost laughed out of anger. What was wrong with these lousy gamers? Did they think that just because esports was popular they could be like other athletes? At the end of the day they were just fooling around. Just because they had fans they were so arrogant. Sooner or later they would fall. His words weren't pleasant to the ears. His voice could be heard through the cracks of the elevator. Zhao Sanpang wanted to press the elevator button and rush out to reason with him. Xiao Jing reached out to stop him. Is there a need? Zhao Sanpang was infuriated. What nonsense is he saying? Didn't many people say that winning or losing isn't important? Since we are just playing a game, it doesn't matter if we lose. Xiao Jing glanced over. At this moment we just have to win. He didn't need to say anything. As long as they won they would be able to bring glory to the country. Only then would they be acknowledged by more people. Those people probably had the same thoughts. Xiao Jing's gaze landed on the white wall of Supreme Alliance's promotional video outside the elevator. He believed that one day people would understand that they weren't just playing a lousy game. They were playing in a league and their event was called esports. Outside the building, Feng Yi was still waiting for news. His phone rang. He didn't pause for a moment. After receiving the news, he turned to call Bo Jio. His phone rang. He didn't pause for a moment. After receiving the news, he turned to call Bo Jio. His phone rang. He didn't pause for a moment. After receiving the news, he turned to call Bo Jio. But there was one thing, the person she wanted to inform wasn't in the computer room. The other members were all there. When Lin Feng heard the decision of the committee, he leaped up from his chair and gave her a bear hug. He asked excitedly, "Really? Little Spade, is what you said true? You can take a look at your phone, Old Fox Feng has sent a message. As expected, there was a group message. Lin Feng was overjoyed. He was so happy. After he was done, he seemed to have thought of something, his back stiffening. He glanced towards Qin Mo's seat instinctively. When he realized there wasn't anyone there, he heaved a huge sigh of relief. Fortunately, his actions weren't seen by his captain. Everyone was happy, but their expressions were different. Bo Jiao found the most reliable Rao Rong and asked, "Where did Brother Mo go?" "He probably went to the washroom." Rao Rong wasn't sure. Washroom? There hadn't been anyone there when she had arrived. At this moment, Feng Shang spoke up. Captain seems to have gone out to buy candies." "Buy candies?" No one believed that such a thing could happen. How could their captain buy candies? Bo Jiao's fingers paused slightly before she headed downstairs. But just 3 minutes ago, outside the apartment at a 24-hour convenience store at the entrance of the estate. She hadn't expected to be so lucky. She had planned to make her move at night. However, she hadn't expected to see that unexpected person. Fan Jia's eyes widened. He had one hand in his pocket, the other on the shelf. He seemed to be choosing something. His face wasn't any different from how she remembered, but now, he looked like a devil who had been freed. From the curve of his lips, she could sense a different evil aura. Very quickly, Fan Jia realized that this was the best opportunity to make her move, because there was no one else beside him except himself. Besides, standing in front of the same shelf in the convenience store wouldn't arouse any suspicion. After making up her mind, Fan Jia suppressed her emotions and strode over to the tall figure. She heard a faint sound. That guy probably likes to eat this brand. The man's finger landed on one of the candies. Fan Jia hadn't expected him to buy candies. With his words, she knew who he was referring to. Intense jealousy made Fan Jia clench her fists tightly, her fingertips digging into her palms. Just as she was about to speak, a loud sound rang out. Swoosh. A poker card flew straight towards her face. Fan Jia dodged immediately, watching as the card stabbed into the bread behind her like a knife. Her face paled and she trembled. "Brother Imo, don't you recognize me?" "Brother Imo?" When Qin Imo heard this word coming from someone else's mouth, he realized a problem. He didn't like it. Fan Jia had wanted to make use of his amnesia to get close to him, but the moment she said that, the man took a packet of candies and was about to pay the bill. He didn't even look at her. Fan Jia narrowed her eyes, blocking Qin Mo's path. "Brother Imo, do you really think that person likes you? She just wants you to participate in the Asian Cup, that's why she listens to you. If you don't believe me, I have pictures here. She has a close relationship with Hoshino. It isn't as simple as mutual admiration, they have always been close friends. Back then, in order to clear Hoshino's name, she didn't hesitate to lie to you. Have you forgotten all that?" Fan Jia narrowed her eyes, blocking his way. "Brother Imo, do you really think that person likes you?" That was what Fan Jia thought he would say. He would at least say a word to her. Unexpectedly, he only gave her one word, a chill in his laziness. Scram. Fan Jia froze on the spot. There wasn't a hint of warmth in his gaze, as though he would kill her if she said another word. It seemed like she shouldn't have used such a method. Since she couldn't have him, no one else could. Fan Jia's eyes dimmed. "Qin Imo, stop lying to yourself. The most important person to you is dead. It's all because you didn't catch her. You must still remember that bottomless abyss." Qin Imo didn't intend to listen to her anymore. But those words seemed to seep into his brain through his eardrums. He understood the hint and wanted to avoid it. But when he heard that sentence, "The most important person to you is dead. It's all because you didn't catch her." The intense pain made him press down on his head. She fell deeper and deeper. By the time you realized it, it was already too late. When she needed you, you were already saving someone else. Fan Jia continued, walking towards her step by step like a snake spitting out its tongue. She fell deeper and deeper. By the time you realized it, it was already too late. Something seemed to break in his brain. Qin Mo's gaze wasn't as sharp as before. Instead, the color gradually faded. He seemed to be looking at something, but at the same time, it seemed like he couldn't see anything. He stretched his hand out to grab something. But all he caught was air. Fan Jia intentionally dodged, looking at him from the side. She continued slowly, "You know better than anyone else that you are the one at fault. If you had listened to her and ignored others, tossing aside your so-called responsibility, she wouldn't have died. Pitiful Z, not only was she not accepted by the world, she would also sink into the abyss forever. You saw how she struggled to get up. When she was young, you promised her that when you grew up, no matter what you did, she would be the first. You were the one who went back on your word, you caused her death. When Fan Jia said the last sentence, Qin Mo's eyes widened. Qin Mo's eyes were completely blank. He raised his hand again. This time it was even more intense than before. It was so intense that even his knuckles turned white. It was fragile yet tough. Back then, it was this tenacity that caused her brother to fail time and time again. She clenched her fists. This time she didn't avoid him. Instead, she reached out to hold his hand. Chapter 1335. The smile on Fan Jia's face froze. That was because she hadn't expected that he wouldn't grab her hand. Instead, he raised his hand and grabbed the red string around his neck. The red string was very thin. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to tell that there was an amulet tied to the other end. Fan Jia gritted her teeth when she saw this. She couldn't accept that at this stage he was still thinking about Z, who should have died a long time ago. The hypnosis wouldn't fail. When he had been in the Golden Triangle, he had seen the video that they had purposely played for him. Moreover, the environment by the lake and his amnesia. All these signs showed that he had been affected. Otherwise he wouldn't have lost his memory. Now that she was doing a deep hypnosis, it was impossible for him not to break down. Fan Jia looked at the pair of dazed eyes and lowered her voice. Brother Mo, it's me. You. Qin Mo's eyes moved down slowly. Fan Jia seemed to have seen hope, her eyes lighting up. That's right, it's me. Z, have you forgotten? You've been looking for me. I haven't forgotten. Qin Mo released the amulet and smiled at Fan Jia. I've been looking for you. Fan Jia knew she had succeeded. In his subconscious he had treated her as Z. Back when she had approached him, she had wanted to use Z's identity because at that time, they had realized that Qin Mo's treatment of Z wasn't his usual style. But at that time he had been too flawless. Even though they had obtained a lot of information, she had only appeared by his side for 3 days. She hadn't done anything and he had exposed her. He had even dug out information about the organization from her. Fan Jia hadn't forgotten about this. She had thought that the best chance to become his lover hadn't been fulfilled. This time it was different. He had a weakness that could be overcome, and it was a fatal one. Since he wasn't willing to admit that that person had left, she would replace that person. Fan Jia didn't care. Anyway, she had become the most important person in his heart. Let's go, Brother Mo? Fan Jia smiled lightly. Qin Mo arched a brow. Where? A place without anyone else. Fan Jia glanced to the side. It's too noisy here. Qin Mo didn't object. He didn't know why, but there seemed to be a voice in his ears telling him that this person was very important. It wouldn't be wrong to listen to her. When he nodded, Fan Jia's smile deepened. She reached out to grab his wrist. But what she grasped was indeed a piece of air. Fan Jia frowned. Brother Mo, Qin Mo didn't know why he dodged. It seemed like a natural reaction. Fan Jia tried again. This time she wanted to hold on to him. But the result was the same. Fan Jia inhaled deeply, looking extremely understanding. It's fine, I know you aren't used to people approaching you, including me. Let's head back to our place first. We'll leave the country tomorrow or the day after. All right. Qin Mo's agreement boosted her confidence. It seemed that it was only a matter of time. After a long time he wouldn't reject her like he did now. Chapter 1336. Enrich. Even though the answer was cold, Fan Jia could see her life-saving talisman. But in that word, Fan Jia could see her life-saving talisman. As long as he was around, the police wouldn't be able to find them. Fan Jia didn't dare to stay any longer and urged Qin Mo to leave. But Qin Mo was still standing there. Fan Jia followed his gaze. It was the box of sweets. Her eyes were filled with jealousy. Brother Mo, if you don't leave with me, I'll be in danger. Do you want to see me die again? Her words were like needles stabbing into Qin Mo's mind. He suddenly turned his head, following behind Fan Jia as they exited the convenience store. At this moment, Fan Jia only wanted to leave. She hurriedly hailed a cab by the roadside. After opening the door, she gave the driver an address and swiftly shut the windows, as though she didn't want Qin Mo to look outside. Right at this moment, Bojio walked towards the convenience store. She couldn't see the speeding cab across the street. Of course, the person in the cab wouldn't be able to see her from so far away. Bojio walked into the convenience store. She scanned her surroundings but didn't see the Almighty. He couldn't have gone back. If he did, she would definitely bump into him. But where did he go? Bojio frowned. She pondered for a moment before walking towards the employee. She reached out to hold the box, her lips lifting slightly. Hello, I have a question. "Oh, thank you, thank you." The employee blushed and thanked her. Then she fell into a daze, wondering how lucky she was to meet so many hunks today. Bojo saw that the girl was in a daze and wanted to repeat her question. "I want to ask, did you see a tall guy wearing a black trench coat just now? He doesn't like to talk and is very handsome. He's here to buy sweets?" Handsome? The employee didn't even have time to think before she blurted out, "I saw him. Just now he was still standing there." Then, a mysterious girl came and said something to him. Then he left with that person. Girl? Bojo paused. The Almighty couldn't possibly know any girls. She thought for a moment and asked again, "Are you sure this person is the same person as the one I described?" "Of course." The employee's eyes lit up. "That man is too handsome. It's hard to forget him. We were wondering if he was a celebrity." He was indeed the Almighty. But why would he leave with a girl? Suddenly, something seemed to have jumped in. Bojo's eyes widened, her fingers trembling. She reached out and grabbed the employee's shoulder. "You must have surveillance cameras here, right? Can I have a look at the surveillance footage?" "This?" The employee was in a difficult position. "You have to ask our store manager." Bojo panicked for the first time. "Where's your manager?" "I think he's in the shop next door." "How about this, I'll call him and ask." The shop assistant was still very enthusiastic. After all, this little handsome guy looked very anxious. He turned his head and was about to reach for his phone. But what she didn't expect was, the other party did not give her the time to do so. Just as she turned her head away, a voice suddenly rang out. Chapter 1337. "Mister, what are you doing? This is our cashier counter, you can't enter as you please." The cashier was clearly frightened. How could anyone other than the staff touch the computer in the convenience store? But the pressure on her shoulders was too strong, she couldn't break free. The handsome youngster just said, "Sorry?" The other hand took over her mouse. She watched as the hand moved the mouse and placed it on the keyboard. Even though it was only one hand, it was faster than her two hands. The file on the screen was quickly opened. Before she could clearly see what the young man was doing, the computer program changed. The cashier tilted her head, signaling for the staff to call the police. She mouthed, "Call 110. The staff was obviously shocked, pressing the phone button, afraid that the youngster would do something drastic. She covered the phone and said, "Hello." Right at this moment, the image on the computer screen popped up. Bojo calculated the time, pulling the video to 3 minutes ago. She saw the back view of the two people leaving. Then she continued to move forward. The camera couldn't capture the youngster's face, but there was a voice. Bojo could hear every single word she said clearly. "Vanjia." Bojo's fingers froze. When he heard that sentence, "You know better than anyone else that the person who made the biggest mistake in this matter was actually you. If you had listened to her, ignored everyone else, and cast aside your so-called responsibility, she wouldn't have died." Pitiful Z. Not only will she not be accepted by the world, she will also sink to the bottom of the ocean forever. You saw her struggling to get up. When she was young, you promised her that when she grew up, no matter what you did, you would put her first. You were the one who broke your promise first. You killed her. Bojo's fingertips turned cold. She should have thought of it. Why did he hate his past self so much? But she was still too stupid. She never knew that the knot in his heart had always been her. He felt sorry for her. That was why he became like this. He had thought of her, the little Bojo he knew when he was young. That was why he said those words to Director Huang. He wasn't looking for her because he wanted to capture her. He was simply looking for her. Bojo couldn't describe her feelings as she watched him leave with Fanjia. There was a murderous look in her eyes. It was strong and undisguised. She didn't stay here for long. After getting the image he wanted, he held onto the table with one hand and flipped over. He unlocked his phone with the other. "Give me an answer now, where exactly is Fanjia?" Young Master Tang heard the strangeness in her words. "What's wrong?" "Fanjia has the key to the hypnosis, the Almighty has left with her." Bojo's voice was clearly softer. Young Master Tang stilled, aware of the severity of the situation. He gave Bojo an address and turned to instruct his men. "Send more plainclothes officers and use the police dogs. The operation is to be carried out 2 hours earlier." Yes. But even so, they weren't faster than her. On this day, almost everyone who lived in the North City district saw a black Lamborghini. It was just like a racing scene in a movie. It sped from the asphalt road into the long alley. The left wheel was pressed against the wall, The car slanted as though it was a black bolt of lightning. Bo Gio held onto the steering wheel with one hand while the other looked at the back of the car. With a turn of her tail, she shook off the police car that had been following her. The police car had been called by the supermarket staff. At first, they had assumed that she was here to rob them, but when they saw her car, they chased her for a whole street. When they questioned the convenience store staff, they found out that she had only taken a glance at the supermarket surveillance camera. In that instant, they didn't know if they should continue the chase. Actually, they didn't need to think about it, because no one could catch up to Z, especially the current Z. The bats whizzed past, bringing with them the wind. At this moment, the taxi had reached its destination. Fanjia smiled sweetly at Chinamo. "You definitely won't like this place." "I don't like it either, but I have no choice. I'm forced to stay here. But things will get better soon. Once we leave the country, no one will be able to control us and I will be able to move around freely." Chinamo remained silent. It seemed as though he had been like this the entire time. He didn't even know if he heard what she was saying. Fanjia clenched her fists, feeling extremely indignant. But at the same time, she knew that some things couldn't be rushed. The two of them continued walking, turning into a long alley and heading upstairs. Suddenly they stopped in front of a door. Chinamo stopped. Fanjia turned. What's wrong? Could it be that he wasn't going to listen to her again? That was impossible. In his heart, she was the most important person. Even if it was his body and behavior, he couldn't accept it, but his hypnosis kept telling him this. That was indeed the case. Chinamo seemed to be imprisoned. All he could think about was protecting this person. There's a problem around here. Fanjia was right about one thing. With Chinamo around, it would be difficult for the police to find them. Is this room yours? Chinmo's voice was emotionless. MH, Fanjia replied. Brother Imo, isn't it shabby? Don't worry, the situation will change soon. Chinamo didn't know why he felt disgusted when she called his name. It's not broken or not, the lock has been tampered with. Don't go in, there might be people inside. Continue walking forward and go down that way. Chinamo nodded. Fanjia broke out in cold sweat when she heard this. A cheap house like this wouldn't be visited by a thief. Under normal circumstances, staying in the room was one of the high-end methods of the police, waiting for the suspect to fall into the trap before taking action. Fortunately, this person had seen through it in advance. Fortunately, she had covered her face. Do you see the person smoking in front of the shop not far away? He should be a stalker. It's best if you don't act suspiciously. Chinmo's voice was still emotionless. There was even a hint of disgust in his voice. Of course, Fanjia could hear it. But so what? Wasn't he still trying to protect her with the words he said now? So this was what he had been relying on in the past. Childhood sweethearts who had grown up together. Even if she was a criminal, she could become the most unique one? From today onwards. Chapter 1338. Very quickly, Fanjia realized things weren't as she had imagined. Chinamo didn't have much feelings for her. Fanjia wasn't willing to give up. She wanted to pretend to be afraid so that he would care about her. However, he spoke before she could. It'll be easier to be discovered if you walk around like this. Go to the noodle shop on the left. Chinmo's tone was calm when he spoke. Fanjia was still worried. Isn't that too obvious? It's too close to the street. The closer we are to the street, the better the view. Chinmo didn't seem to like explaining. Regardless of what Fanjia said, he didn't speak. He approached the noodle shop and asked for a seat by the window. The angle was ingenious. Because of the decorations on the table, people outside wouldn't be able to see what they looked like. However, the people inside could clearly see what was going on outside. Moreover, the shop was at a triangular corner. This meant that not only could they see the pedestrians in front, but they could also see the movements on the left and right. After Chinmo sat down, he didn't order noodles. Instead, he ordered a cup of hot tea. Fanjia watched the plainclothes officers walk past the window. That was when she understood why Chinmo was sitting there. She was good at anti-detection. The ordinary police wouldn't be able to catch her. However, Fanjia could sense the difference in the plainclothes officers this time. They had come so fiercely that she could only hide in such a poor place. There were no cameras here. It wouldn't be easy for them to find her. But if they really carried out a carpet search, it would be hard for her to escape. What scared Fanjia the most was that they already knew which building she was staying in. Fortunately, she had made a move in advance and used the hypnosis key. As expected, as long as Chinmo was around, everything would be done with half the effort. Fanjia knew why her master had wanted him to become a member of the organization in the past. Because having Chinamo was equivalent to having a divine weapon. Regardless of whether it was for protection or killing, he was the most valuable. Now Fanjia could clearly see his value. He could drink tea leisurely in front of the plainclothes officers without being discovered. He was a natural-born criminal. Fanjia smiled. From now on they would be in the same world. The plainclothes guards were still pacing back and forth outside. Something seemed to have happened as their footsteps became much more hurried. Something had indeed happened. It was the person hiding in the house who discovered the problem. Young Master Tang, the landlord, said that Fanjia came back but she didn't enter the room. We didn't see her on the other floors, not even the first floor. What should we do? Get out of the room first. Retreat? Yes, there's no point in continuing to wait. If Fanjia had been with Chinamo, these tricks would have been nothing in front of him. Then, wait a minute, who are you and what are you doing here? Before the plainclothes man could finish his words, a slender figure suddenly appeared in front of the door. It was a young man around 18 years old. He had his head lowered and was looking at the door lock. His eyes were slightly narrowed and no one knew what he was thinking. The plain-clothed man was about to walk over and hold him down to interrogate him. Unexpectedly, the moment his hand touched the youngster's shoulder, the youngster pushed him back. Then he heard the youngster's cold voice. They were here, you just didn't notice. What? The plainclothes man was stunned. Just as he was about to ask something, he heard a voice. Just as he was about to ask, the youngster released his hand and turned to walk in another direction. His gaze landed on the pile of rubbish that had been stepped on. They went down from here, so half of your efforts were in vain. Who exactly are you? The plain-clothed man couldn't help frowning. Are you a student from around here? Kid, let me tell you, don't be like Detective Conan just because you watch too much anime. We still have to search for evidence, you. The plain-clothed man hadn't expected that before he could finish his sentence, a voice interrupted him. He was interrupted by the voice on the other end of the phone. How old is the person you're talking to? 10, I think he's 18, the plain-clothed man stuttered. He hadn't expected young Master Tang to ask such a question. The most surprising thing was that the question continued. He's rather handsome with silver hair? Yes. Then it's her. I'll need at least 2 hours to get there. During these 2 hours, the entire team will listen to her commands. No matter how shocked they were, they would obey the orders given by their superiors. But no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't figure out what kind of person could make young Master Tang so sure of their abilities. Moreover, the other party looked like a student no matter how he looked at him. Since they were so close, Bojo could hear their conversation. She watched the shocked expression on the plainclothes man's face but didn't say a word. She didn't want to lead the team either. She just wanted to find someone as soon as possible. However, this phone call was also beneficial. Firstly, no matter what she did in the vicinity, these plainclothes officers would not arrest her. Secondly, she had also obtained some information. She had been here but did not enter the building, which meant that the police's operation was successful at first, but someone had seen through them. Bojo didn't think Fanjia would be the one to see through it. Only the Almighty would be able to observe something as detailed as the lock. Through the video in the supermarket, Bojo already knew the key to hypnosis. She knew that the Almighty had mistaken Fanjia for her. She didn't know how effective hypnosis was. She only knew one thing. If the Almighty was really trying to avoid the police, he definitely wouldn't be like Fanjia who would hide in the shadows. He would be very calm, right in front of you, one step ahead of you, occupying the best spot without you noticing. Bojo closed her eyes, thinking about the few times they had crossed paths. At the same time, she recalled the times when she thought she had escaped safely, only to be caught by the Almighty. Suddenly her eyes widened, bright as stars. Field of vision. Regardless of the situation, field of vision was the most important. Bojo swept the pile of rubbish downstairs. She leaped over with large strides, her eyes watching the people walking back and forth. The environment here wasn't good. The streets were dirty and messy, even the building was on the verge of being demolished. Just like that, it was in an alley. But even such a place had its own terrain. Bojo scanned the roads on her left, right, front, and back. Gradually, a map formed in her mind. This was the place to stay, this was the market, that was the convenience supermarket, and after another turn there was a three-way junction, the noodle shop. Chapter 1339. The noodle shop was too small and inconspicuous. Honestly, if Bojo hadn't tried hard, she wouldn't have been able to remember it. But at the same time, she knew that such a place would be easily overlooked. It was too ordinary and normal. However, its geographical location and perspective were indeed excellent. It was just like how she liked to eat Odin in the convenience store when she was in disguise, watching the police cars fly past her. Bojio glanced up abruptly. The tip of her tongue touched the roof of her mouth. This time, was she here to stop him? Bojio was smart. She didn't let the plainclothes guard follow her. She didn't even choose to enter from the left, right, and front. Instead, she walked to the back, removed her black trench coat and wrapped it around her hand. Then she pushed against the wall and walked into the kitchen. When the chef saw the sudden appearance of a person, his hand that was scooping up the noodles paused. What was going on? The most important thing was that the child took away the shredded meat noodles he had cooked. She had taken it away. Bojio had indeed taken a plate of noodles. That was because the Almighty hadn't eaten dinner in order to buy sweets for her. Of course, she was prepared for the fact that she would be facing two people later. Bojio dragged the plate with one hand and stuffed the other into her pocket. She walked towards the window. Fangia's back was facing her, so she didn't see the person approaching them. But Chinamo was different. He seemed nonchalant, but in reality he could sense the slightest movement. Moreover, the person who didn't seem like a waiter was walking towards them with a plate. Chinamo found that person familiar. But the reason he didn't shift his gaze wasn't because of the familiarity. It was because of the smile on her lips. It was interesting, as though she was saying, "Look, I knew you would be here." Chinamo arched a brow. Fangia didn't know what he was looking at. By the time she turned around, her expression had completely changed. The venom in her eyes wasn't concealed at all. How did she find her way here? Fangia bolted upright, picking up the knife hidden in her bag and pointing it at Bojio. She lowered her body slightly and placed the plate of shredded pork noodles in front of him, her voice carrying a hint of dissatisfaction. "Brother Imo, I really didn't expect you to be tricked away when you were buying sweets. Here the noodles are freshly cooked, eat it while it's hot. I know you don't remember me again. Actually, I feel that after I stop gaming I can write a book called, 'My Boyfriend Loses His Memory Every Once in a While.'" Chinamo didn't speak. He was observing the youngster. Fangia watched from the side, the venom in her eyes growing thicker and thicker. In the end she couldn't take it anymore. She lowered her head and smiled, her voice like a snake's. "Brother Imo, this is the person who has been trying to hurt me. Help me kill her." Bojio's fingers stilled. She knew very well what would happen if a hypnosis was turned on. She was still too impulsive and wanted to bring him back, so she walked in just like that. But she forgot about Fangia's treachery. Fangia seemed to be enjoying the feeling, her lips curling into an uncontrollable smile. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.